We're back at the restaurant with myself, Butch, Hiles, Gary Hashman, and Keith No of New Line Cage Fighting. Or are you switching names, by the way? Like,
no, we're just going to alternate our events. We'll have New Line Championship boxing events in a ring. Then we'll have New Line Cage Fighting in the cage. So I don't know. I may end up if it ends up being too confusing, I may do something later. I was kind of thinking about that, like New Line Fights or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not confusing. I mean, because
yeah,
it clearly says cage fighting, one clearly says boxing.
Yeah.
So I mean, I got the gist. The reason I was asking too is I didn't know which logo to post when I said, "Hey, I'm going live,"
Yeah.
and I just
one.
And then when you went on this meeting, you had the New Line boxing one. So I was like, "Well, shit, I hope I didn't mess up." But it's all good. But so, one of the reasons I want to have you on anyway, but obviously, I just attended your show. It was a great show. Very impressed. And we'll get to that later. But, in West Virginia, which is mainly where these shows are, and I'm sure you guys may or may not branch out, but this is something that we need, right? Because, for example, I did some shows, but when I was doing them, you could only do pro, which kind of handcuffs you because we didn't really have enough pro fighters to, draw like West Virginia. People are going to sell tickets have to be from the city is super important, but definitely the state, right? Even the state doesn't necessarily sell tickets for Charleston or Logan, West Virginia. I mean, you need to be from the city. So the magic really comes in the amateurs because you can get a bunch of people, right? Like, it's great. And so you've hit that sweet spot, which is great. But it also, like, it's something that our state, meaning West Virginia, really needs right now because, for example, I get a bunch of people that call and they want to train, they want to do stuff. And I flat out tell them half the time, I'm like, for example, if somebody calls for boxing, they say, I want to do some boxing. I'm going to say, well, first of all, I want to let you know, there's no boxing fights in West Virginia, hardly ever. And blah, blah, blah. Right. And they're like, oh, I didn't. Yeah. And so now you're helping change that. You're right. So that's going to be a phrase that I can't say much more, but same thing when I get somebody calls for Muay Thai, I'm like, I just want to let you know, there's no Muay Thai going on, which there's a difference between Muay Thai and kickboxing. That's kind of how we start off. Also, I'm not really a fight gym anymore. Obviously, we still have some fighters, but I don't consider myself a fight gym because that's two separate things, meaning I train regular people that, work 9 to 5 and they just want to train. And that's the focus. It's a big difference, right? But it does, again, we still have some people come in and do this, but nonetheless, what I want to do is start this off for people that don't know you or don't know New Line Cage Fighting and New Line boxing. Tell us again how we got here, how you came up with this, where you came from, what's your background, why you're qualified to do this, all that stuff.
Well, it's really a lot of experience, man, because I never had any kind of sports marketing classes or anything in college. I was going to college to be an elementary teacher, and then ended up going into coal mining and some other stuff, but so went down a different path, but ultimately ended up back in sports. I love sports. I always have, ever since I was a kid. I was never good at sports until high school. Didn't really participate in anything, but my neighborhood, man, we had a lot of kids. We had a lot of kids in our neighborhood. We were setting up our own leagues, whether it was like hockey on the basketball court or kickball or soccer. We played a little bit of everything and just always organized stuff. And we were all into martial arts. We were all taking karate from Carlos Turner down in Logan, so we were all into that. And then when we were little, we were all between like 7 and 10. And then the first UFC comes out, man, and we were just amazed. And my friend Adam, his cousin, had it recorded on VHS. We were just watching it over and over and over. We fell in love with it. And then Adam ended up getting some. He ended up getting some Gracie VHS sets, and so we were training out in the yard and just trying to mimic what we saw in there. We just fell in love with it, man. But yeah, so grew up, kind of wanted to get into that stuff. There was nothing going on in the area. We had a karate gym. You had Tough Man once a year. That was it. Like, I didn't know amateur fighting even existed outside of Tough Man. Like, I literally, up until I was probably 19 or 20, I thought the route to become a pro fighter was you had to win a Tough Man and go from there. Like, I had no idea. But
But you know,
Yeah,
not to interrupt, sorry to interrupt, but you're not wrong. In West Virginia, unfortunately, we were not the hotbed because of the former athletic commission. And it's not that I want to trash them, but that's all they pushed, correct? I mean, it was tough man and rough and rowdy. So if you won those, you had to turn pro, which man, you had a bunch of pros that had no amateur boxing experience.
Right.
And, I'm telling you, it was awful. I remember, you know, some good fighters being on TV, which Mike Shepard, you know, fighting for a world title. And I remember the announcers on ESPN making fun of him because they were like, he's not even won a West Virginia title. How is he in this fight? Right. Which they didn't know that we didn't have West Virginia titles. There was no boxing. It was like this state was so overran with tough man and rough and rowdy. Now, and again, I'm not trashing those guys that promote those are both my friends. But what happened was those were so popular for whatever reason. They were selling out, you know, 13,000, 7,000 seats, right? 2 nights. But then they would throw a pro boxing event and maybe get 200, right? So West Virginia was not a combat sports mecca, which made it hard for guys like yourself. And not to interrupt, but I just want to know people to understand the history of why West Virginia is always 5 to 10 years behind of everything. It just seems like we're always in the dark ages. And that's one of the reasons we have to break out of that. And finally, you're one of the people that's helping us break out of that, you know, to get with everybody else finally.
Yeah, it was, you know, the first time I fought a tough man, I wasn't even training. I had never even had a pair of boxing gloves on my hand. A friend of mine got on their website and signed me and him up because he said he thought we would do good. He didn't run it by me first. He just signed me up. And, this was back when I think ICQ was the way everybody was talking. He had ICQ and email.
Oh, shit. Do you know what that is, Gary, by the way?
No, but this has got to be the beginning of the internet and stuff because I don't know any.
So the upside of ICQ, that's back when you had like AIM Messenger and AOL and stuff. Like ICQ was just super cool because as Keith was typing to me, I could actually watch him type, like meaning that it didn't, if he wrote, you know, hey Butch, how are you? I would see HEY, like, you know what I mean? It's like you felt like I was with the person because we couldn't see each other's face, right? So you're like, I could actually see the person type and delete and like, so that was the big thing. ICQ was like a huge thing.
I believe you had to be online to even send the person. They had to be online to send them a message, I believe, too. It was
absolutely,
I was getting messages, people telling me good luck in the tough man. I'm like, what are you talking about? And it was like a week before the fight. And then I saw the Logan banner had my name on the fighter list. And I was like, oh no, like I can't just not show up now because people now I'm gonna, you know, look like a big sissy not showing up. So I showed up and fought, and I think I won 3 fights. I had 2 knockouts, and then I won a third one. Then I lost to a guy named Mike Staley from Elkview. He was
that's where I live currently. Yeah, he's awesome.
2-time champion. He beat me on a decision. Yeah. So that was pretty. But then I fell in love with it, man. I won that first fight. The first night, man, I had no idea how to box. I did some karate when I was a kid, but I was jumping around like I was in karate. Just, you know, my hands were real wide like Chuck Liddell, and then this dude, I kind of baited him in like I was doing some point sparring. I jumped in, and he kind of drove. He was coming forward. I just landed a straight right, man, and put him to sleep in 18 seconds, like out cold. And I was like, that was awesome. So I was like, man, I want to keep doing this. And I started training like the next day. Then it was probably bad because I was out. My uncle had a punching bag, and I went and hit his punching bag for like 5 hours that Saturday before I went and fought. And then my arms were like all sore that night. That was I fell in love with it.
True old school training though, like no internet, so you couldn't get other people's training routines. It was so new that there probably was no training routines, right? So hitting the heavy bag for 5 hours seemed like perfectly normal.
Yeah, I had no gloves. I was just beating this bag with my bare fists. I ended up buying a bag, hanging in my dad's garage after that. And I bought a bunch of dollar store mirrors and hung them up so I could see myself. Put a TV out there, and I was always watching like ESPN Tuesday night fights and just, you know, mimicking the guys. Eventually I bought a video camera. So I was filming myself train and rewatching it, trying to get I was kind of coaching myself. My offense improved, but I guess you can't really teach yourself defense when nobody's throwing punches at you. So that was all I had. I was a very boring fighter. I didn't know how to block. I didn't know how to move. I was either throwing or I was circling away really fast.
Well, a good offense is a good defense, right?
Yeah.
I was going to say, like, I think that, a lot of things early on in development and stuff, jiu-jitsu, boxing, guys who do it, who don't have the standard avenue, whether it be like a boxing gym or whatever, it really does kind of like separate you as far as like from other guys who had that path, because you're there because just the passion.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing is just, I want to learn, and I don't have the standard avenues that everybody else has. So I'm going to, okay, there's a video. I'm going to watch a video. Like you said, I'm going to put up dollar store mirrors. So, okay, am I throwing my jab right, turning my thumb over like Canelo does, or whoever it is, like whatever. I'm doing that. When I roll, is it the same thing? And so almost those guys, for the lack of like regular instruction that they have, the passion makes up for it so much more. And I think you see a lot of guys from that go on to a good coach, and they just skyrocket. And so I think there's a lot to be said just about finding the passion for it, which was sounds like what you had.
Yeah. I had a passion, but I didn't. Yeah, I did definitely lack the coaching, the skill. My boxing didn't get good until after I quit fighting. I was just after I quit fighting in 2008, and I just kept on. Anytime I walk by a mirror, I'm just shadow boxing. Still watching fights, and over the years, I'm always getting on YouTube and just watching videos on how to do this, how to do that. Even and there was times I was like, I'm never going to fight again, but still, I don't know. I was wanting to learn it. Maybe I can teach it to my son someday. And here I am, 39, making a little comeback. But my boxing is better now than it ever was. It's weird because I haven't fought or trained since really 2008. I did a few one-off fights after that, but didn't really, take anything serious. Wasn't training for anything. Broke my back in 2013, so I was, I was done at that point. And until that day in Ohio, about a year and a half ago, I was just watching some guys fight, and then ended up stepping out, fighting a guy out in the dirt myself. But yeah, I don't know, man. I never thought I'd be back doing it, but promoting, I love the promoting.
Well, how did you make the turn into promoting? So how many fights did you have before you decided to go ahead and start promoting?
6-1 MMA. Boxing was about 24-5, but that includes tough man, rough and rowdy bouts. So, like amateur, I didn't have that many actual amateur bouts. I never did Golden Gloves or USA Boxing. Never did any of that. I fought a Golden Glove champion one time and beat him. He was way better. I dropped the dude a few times. Outside of the 4 punches that I dropped the guy, he dominated the fight, but I won a decision because I had so many knockdowns. But that dude I felt helpless in there against him. And he would get on the inside, man. I didn't know how to fight on the inside back then. I was just like trying to stay away, and the dude was all over me. Every time I would create space, man, I would land a big right hand and dropped him with a few of them. That was pretty cool. But so promoting, man, after I got out of the fighting, I did some inspecting, referee and judging for the commission. I don't know, there wasn't a lot going on, and especially down around Logan area. But I tried to start a boxing, kickboxing promotion around 2010. I think it was 2010. I can't remember, but the commission denied me. They said we already had a promoter down in that area, which was Tough Man once a year and Rough and Rowdy once a year in Williamson. So they acted like there was too much already going on down there. Yeah.
Let me ask you there. So was Leon Ramsey in the commission at that point or no?
No, that was several years before Leon.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Not to trash the former people, but again, so there's somebody's telling you there's a promotion there that comes there once a year and you can't throw a fight.
Right. Yeah.
What the hell? Again, look at why we're 5 or 10 years behind, right? Like that makes no sense, right? Like, so I show up once a year for one day, maybe 2 days, and I say, hey man, your region's covered, man.
Yeah. Region's covered. Yeah.
Yeah, not only is your region covered, I don't care if they train or not. They just need to show up and fight. I mean, gosh,
Yeah.
man, this is what we've been dealing with. And
Yeah.
and to help your story though, I want to add this, Gary, just so you know too, like, that's back when I was trying to help the commission and trying to change the laws, and ultimately did change the laws that helped MMA be legal. But Keith would text me a lot, right? And he'd say, hey,
Yeah.
like, I want to judge, I want to do something, like, how can I get in this? And the unfortunate thing is, I was like, man, I don't know, because we're stuck
Yeah.
in limbo. Like, we still have the old people that don't want anybody here. Like, it
Yeah.
is legal now, but it's legal, and the same people are still here, so they don't want it. And so I can't give you an answer. And it was very sad. I felt bad.
Yeah.
Like when I was throwing shows, I'm just telling everybody they don't know. It was hell, because
they had so many weird requirements. You had to have, what was it, 2 6x6 screens.
yeah,
It was required. Like,
and
you could, if they came in there, if the commission came in, you didn't have those 2 big screens hanging in the arena, no fights were happening. They had so many weird requirements on the fights back then. It was on MMA. Boxing, anything would go. You could have 20-0 versus 0-10, good to go. But MMA,
nothing.
Super strict. Yeah.
It was to make the sport fail. So they did everything in their power, even though it became legal, because the same commission was still in line. They wanted to make sure it didn't happen. So I think the original rules was that it had to be arena over 3,500 people. So there was hardly anywhere in the state that suited that, right? There's the Civic Center, Williamson Fieldhouse, which is why that was the first show, because it was over that. But that was one of the rules. Like you said, it had to have 2 video screens. They cost a shit ton of money. So when I'm saying 2 video, like, I had to pay the Civic Center, and I'm not knocking union, but union fees are higher. So a lot of pretty high fees, and professional video people that also cost money. Plus I'm in Civic Centers, costing a bunch of money, plus paying all pro fighters. It was like on and on and on, everything. And then any moment they could deny a fight. So I could set up the fight. And just as Keith said, to have great fights set up where these guys were like evenly matched. I mean, I knew these people, and I was trying to throw, because I didn't have the pro fighters from Charleston, or didn't have the pro fighters from Williamson. I just wanted to throw the best fight, so that everybody's like, man, I will be back in the next one. So I'd put some very competitive former UFC people on the thing. And then the last second, the commission would be like, hey man, that fight's not fair. I'm denying it. I'm like, what do you mean you're denying it? You just like that. I was like, you let a guy that's 0-99 fight a guy that's 50-0, and you think that's perfectly fine. And I have a guy that's whatever, 8-8 versus another guy that's 10-10, and you're saying no. And that's what they would do. But again, my point was, I chose to go through that hell in order to make sure people like yourself could go. And ultimately, because I went through that hell, they disappeared, because they're like, look, I can't stop it anymore. They're going to do it. And then that's all I wanted. And then, not that I did anything important, but that was my theory back at the time. And now, thank God, like, you're here, right? Because, like,
now you guys did some important stuff, man. I mean, you guys really, if you hadn't done all that you did, there wouldn't be any of this going on right now. It was just, I mean, it would probably be the same as it was. So,
now we have a great commission.
Oh yeah, they're awesome now.
Yeah, Leon Ramsey's, he's the head of the athletic commission, is amazing. But not only that, like, when I went to your fight, for example, I saw Caleb as whatever the heck he was doing. I don't know what he was doing.
Oh yeah, he was inspector. Yeah,
he was and he did great. All the commissioners I didn't know, the female commissioner, the male, the guys that were wearing the red, they're fantastic. They treated fighters great. And I could tell the one, I don't know a lot of these people, but like, one guy had a massive cauliflower ear. Obviously he trains, right? I mean, it's like, you don't have cauliflower ear if you don't do anything, like,
right.
And everything was on point. Like, and I haven't been to a fight really since mine, because again, I don't train fighters. So going to your show, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't really care either way, meaning that, I'm not gonna say it was good or bad.
Yeah, I thought it was cool having you there, man. That was my 8th show, and it was the first time I'd seen you in years in person. So I thought it was pretty cool seeing you. Yeah,
I was honored to be there. That's the thing. I'm not saying I'm nobody. I'm just saying I was honored to be there. And I want to get into this later because Gary doesn't know, he wasn't there. But I mean, you guys had interviews after the fights. I mean, you had commentators. You took it to a level that I've known you for years that I didn't know was possible with Keith. No, right? Because like I know you, but I don't know you.
Yeah.
And then when I was like, dude, this is awesome. Like this is great. Like very well. I mean, your family did a good job. You guys weren't too stressed. I mean, I know that curveballs happen all the time with fighters not showing up, but you weren't like freaking out and hard to talk to. You're still very easygoing. Like very impressive, which is why I wanted to do this today. Like, man, it couldn't have been a better thing. And again, congrats to you for
Thank you.
Trying all this stuff and putting all your hard work. And I've never heard nothing bad, but what I was going to say is like, I don't know if there's haters out there, and I don't mean because I've heard anything, because I haven't. Yeah. But if there are, screw those people, because you've done really good jobs. So like, I mean, because on the way there, for example, I took a friend of mine who's never been to events or anything. And I was like, look, man, you're probably like, he's never done anything. I was like, you're gonna have to corner these guys. And he's like, what? Like, I was like, so let me run you through the stuff. And I was like, I want to let you know, I typically don't like boxing people. He's like, why? And I say, here's my experience. I've been to boxing shows in Ohio where it's slight MMA, slight boxing. It's like all the boxing guys stared at us like they're hard asses. They think they can kill us. And in fact, there's fights in the background, like in the back locker room. And I was like, it's just a different vibe. I was like, when you're at an MMA show, everybody's really friendly and respectful. And I was like, there might be some showmanship, to try to sell tickets, but in general, everybody's like hugging afterwards. It's a different vibe. And so I was like, this is probably gonna suck. I just want to let you know. But it was not that. Like everybody was maybe because most of those were MMA fighters. I don't know, because I knew most of the gyms, like Ground Zero was there, and obviously our gym, and people from, I mean, like it was still kind of the same people, but man, everybody was cool as hell. Like, and I was like, and then it reminded me, like I haven't been around the fight game for like a long time. Like people are even asking me, they're like, when the last time, like Robbie Parsons, he was one of the judges. He said, when's the last time you been to an event? I said, dude, I don't even know. It's been a long time. And he's like, well, what do you think? I was like, it reminds me of why, like, I love that shit. Like, it's like everybody's cool and it's a good vibe. And I love seeing people pumped up. I like seeing people happy. That's why I do this, or why I did it. Right? But anyway, so my point was, props to you. The whole show is for you. You went to Huntington. You've never been there before, I'm assuming.
No, this first time. Yeah, I was a little worried. It's my first time leaving the coal field. So definitely worried. Awesome. Yeah. And
I mean, a good amount of people, right? Not a lot of drama.
No, we had our first ever fight outside the ring.
I heard about it. I was going to skip that, but that's okay.
Yeah, we've never sold alcohol at fights. I didn't sell alcohol. The hotel had, their own bar. So, two guys ended up throwing down in the crowd, and I found out later they were there they were friends, and they were there together, like had a room in the hotel. I don't know what happened. They ended up fighting in the crowd. And then one of our fighters who was there, whose fight ended up getting canceled. Brittany Vaughn's opponent pulled out the day before. And Brittany ended up breaking the fight up. One of them turned on Brittany, and then Brittany choked the guy out with a rear naked choke.
I know.
Then the security chased the other guy out of the arena. He went to his hotel room down the hallway, changed clothes, and came back.
I saw him. So I was there for the ending. I did not see the fight, but I saw everybody goes, there's that guy that got his IC back, and that's why. But also, my wife was there, and she was very impressed with Brittany. Just so you know, she was like, Brittany was the first one there. Yeah, she broke it up. She kicked some ass, and that's awesome. Because
Brittany's awesome.
Yeah, and Gary and I, she was at our last tournament and kicked some butt. I think she was first in the men's division. Yeah, been fighting a lot of tough men, kicking some ass, but. Not only that, she's basically being security without getting paid. So good for her, man. She's killing it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, everybody, for my wife to come up and say, like, she talked about her over and over. So that's awesome. I'm glad we're on here, because if she does listen to this, I want everybody to know that we're impressed. For some, because we probably brought like 15 kids. I don't know if you saw, like, a lot of kids from the gym.
Yeah, one of my friends from Lexington was telling me, so he was sitting behind you guys. His name's Keith as well. And he had his two boys with him. He said that they were hanging out with your boys, and they had a really good time. They were loving it.
They loved every bit of including that fight. So it's fun.
Yeah.
It was added to the fun. And not only that, if that's your first one, that's great, because I'm going to tell you again, not trashing those other things. Because of alcohol, there's usually 20, 30 fights in the crowd of every event. It's because of alcohol.
Yeah.
It's not because of the event. They have nothing to do with it. Alcohol. And the problem is, listen, if you're fighting in an event where I could be fighting a guy from down the street and your girlfriend's yelling, kick his ass, and then your girlfriend next to him, there's going to be a fight because they're going to be like, shut up. That's my guy. That's my man. Bam, there's a fight, right? I mean, it's what it is. Look, it's West Virginia. That's what the people who listen to country music we fight. I mean, as Keith Noe said earlier, he signed up for a fight without fight. That is completely normal in Logan, West Virginia.
Yeah.
Not only that, let's get into this because you kind of prefaced it, and let's just jump in it. Why were you watching some backyard fights, and why did you get into a backyard fight?
So my buddy Jason kind of wanted, he's been wanting to make a comeback. He's over 40. So, you know, the over 40 rules in West Virginia, you got to get the MRA, the EKG and all that. And his insurance wasn't covering it. He couldn't afford it for cash. And he's been looking outside of West Virginia for fights. Well, then COVID shuts everything down. And then we start hearing about these things, you know, street beefs and the underground fight league. And there's several of them now. We started hearing about all that. And, like, man, that's pretty cool. And we were watching some videos on YouTube. They were doing MMA, boxing, kickboxing, kind of like us, but it was unsanctioned out in the woods. And a guy that I know in Ohio contacted me just asking if I knew anybody that would want to do it. And I was like, man, I don't know if anybody wants to do, you know, that, but yeah, I'd like to come watch. And so I didn't really like spread the word or anything, but I told my buddy Jason, and he was like, yeah, I want to fight in it, you know, because he couldn't fight sanctions, so he went to fight. And somebody, I mean, I can't even remember, somebody else went to fight. So we all piled up in a car, drove to, I think it was Wheelersburg, Ohio, and it was out like up a holler. I guess if you call it a holler, it wasn't really, you know, mountains or anything. But
not in not in Ohio, right? It's called something different, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
hollow. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But it was out, drive up by a creek out in the woods, and they had this big clearing.
Well, I'm gonna cut you off. I'll tell you right now. I'm from Ohio, and if you're in that part of the woods, it was the holler.
Still a holler. I'll be there.
Still a holler.
In the holler. I was just there to watch, man. Everybody was getting drunk and they were fighting. They had a little ring made out of they stole some road cones, some of the big tall orange road cones off of a state road project, and then they had some caution tape. I'm just out there watching, and they stopped to take a little break, go eat some hot dogs, drink some beer, and then I ended up, you know, kind of getting called out for a fight. Like, all right, let's do it. And then
how did you get called out though? Did somebody in the crowd just look at you and say, like, fuck you, or how does
I don't know, man. My buddy Jason came and told me that I had a fight. I was sitting down in the car getting some air conditioning and some water. He's like, hey man, there's a guy to fight you. And like, fight me. He's like, yeah. I was like, all right.
This seems to be a running thing in your life, like buddies signing you up for Tough Man, and buddies signing you up for street beefs or whatever it is. It's like, this is a running thing for you. We gotta talk about your friends, man.
Yeah, Gary don't do that, and I don't do that.
They assume I'm gonna do well, and so they just sign me up. They just throw my name in the hat. So I was wearing sandals and I think some like khaki shorts. So I went out there. I literally just kicked my sandals off. I think the other guy had boxing shoes, and then he said that he didn't want me fighting barefoot to be an excuse to lose, so he took his shoes off and he fought barefoot as well. And I went and wore him out, man. I was gassed. During the second round, I guess they could see I had a bit of a gut on me. So the second round, their guy, his corner guy started saying, go for the body, go for the body. I'm like, oh God, here we go. So my strategy became now like, all right, I'm gonna keep my hands down. I'm gonna lean forward. I'm gonna stick my face at him, give him a big target in my head. That way he just keeps punching up here, and then I can just counter off of that. It's like, because if he hit me in the body, I was done. I knew it was going to be over.
Were you drinking beer and eating hot dogs before that, or?
No, I think I had Mountain Dew. I'm not a drinker. I had some
great mountain.
I'm out in like 96-degree weather drinking Mountain Dews.
Yeah. Listen, I saw the fight. It would have made sense to play it on here, but we didn't play it. But I saw it, Gary, just so you know. He really did beat this guy, and it looked very technical. Like I'll be honest, and when I tuned in, I was prepared to make fun of you in my head. not in real life, like on the internet, just be like, oh, what's he thinking? And I was like, damn, it looks not too bad. I'm very shocked.
Yeah. Way past.
I'm thinking about all the other stuff. Like you said, I had flip flops off or sandals or whatever. I kicked my sandals off. You kick your sandals off. What about a mouthpiece? And like no mouthpiece. No mouthpiece.
No,
oh my god.
No, I wasn't there to fight. I wasn't prepared at all.
They didn't even have nobody had a boil and bite that they could just like, hey, throw this in or something.
Everybody that was fighting had all their stuff, man. They all had nut cuffs on. They had their hands taped. I didn't have anything. Like I didn't warm up because I figured my thought on that was I was so out of shape. If I warm up, I won't have anything left for the fight. It was like it's 96 degrees. I'm loose. Like if I warm up, I'm done. So I was like, yeah, let me know when it's a couple minutes before my fight. I'm gonna drink a Mountain Dew, maybe give me a little energy.
Yeah.
So
did you win by knockout or stoppage or how?
No, they went to decision, man. That guy was tough. I landed some solid shots on him and I don't know if I hurt him. He didn't act like it, but also I was my hands were really slow. I looked technical, but I didn't have a pop on my punch. I hadn't trained in years, and I've got it back now. If I fought the same dude today, like it would be ugly. Because I'm actually training now. My hand speed's coming back. I'm 270. I was up to 300, but I'm down to I was 273 yesterday.
Well, just for reference, so when you and I did jiu-jitsu together 20 years ago, what did you weigh then?
Probably. Man, I was up and down. There were
you were skinny.
I was skinny. I was really skinny. And then at first I was a little smaller. And then I was lifting weights a little bit too, because I wasn't doing MMA, so I wasn't worried about like weight classes. I ended up getting that was later. So when I was doing jiu-jitsu with you guys, I was usually between 160, 170. When I got
human, Gary,
a
whole nother person. Yeah, I mean that's 150 pounds that you gained, and then start taking fights, right? Like that's impressive. And
I was 162 pounds the morning I became a truck driver, and I was 280 the day I got laid off. So
is that because of truck driving? Is that a terrible job?
The problem was there's something wrong with my elbow, because when you're driving, every time your elbow bends, your mouth opens, and then you eat something.
There you go.
I blame the elbow.
Yeah. That seems like a problem. I've never heard it described that way, but I like that.
Yeah.
Because maybe I have a problem with my elbows as well. I don't know.
Yeah, I would get to lunchtime, man, and go open my lunch bucket, and I had nothing left. I'm like, oh gosh, I'd start packing more stuff.
Well, I mean, honestly, I mean, you've had damn, that's crazy. So you've gained a person.
Yeah.
But you're slimming down now. You're training again, and
whatever. Yeah, I'm training now at Reaction MMA in Nicholasville with Rob Nickerson. They're affiliated with George Gurgel. Yeah. So I got down here. I didn't really intend on doing it. My son loves it. So right before we moved out here, we met a guy in Logan. His name was Tom Murphy. He's a Gracie Baja black belt, and so. I started taking my son down to him, Gavin, and Gavin fell in love with it. But we were in the process of moving, so we weren't consistent with him. And Gavin maybe trained with him 5 or 10 times. And
before we get too far, how old's your son?
He's 14.
14. Okay.
14, and he's 6'2", 200 pounds. Yeah, he's a big guy.
He's a big boy.
Yeah. But yeah, so we got out here, and I took Gavin down to Rob's gym. I signed him up and had him. He was in his first class, and I'm sitting there, with the parents over in the chairs on the side, in the worst shape of my life, sitting in a gym. I'm like, dude, this is stupid. So I joined. But I've mostly just been hitting the bags. I did a couple of days of grappling, and my body wasn't holding up well because it's been so long. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna hit the bags and do some regular workouts, try to get my body back into it, and I'm getting there. I signed up for a tournament. I'm doing a Jiu Jitsu tournament in Louisville on the 26th of this month. I think it's AGF or something like that. It's going to be my first tournament since 2006. I'm excited, man.
You got one on March 26th you can go to as well.
26th. Yeah. What's the West Virginia games?
No, not really. Everybody keeps calling it that, but no, but it's okay. Just a regular tournament.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, but that's awesome though. AGF, that's Grappling Federation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, American Grappling Federation.
Yeah, which is awesome, man. I think, and then if you're training with Nickerson and those guys are amazing. They've got a great gym. Is that Lexington or Louisville?
Yeah, right outside of Lexington. It's in Nicholasville.
Yeah, that guy's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, if anybody doesn't know who Rob Nickerson is, and he comes sometimes to West Virginia and trains with Chad and Elkins, and I think they're affiliate of SAS under them. But regardless, fucking, he's amazing. So anybody that hasn't heard of him, very good guy. I don't know him that well personally, but I'm singing his praises. Those guys are amazing. Jim's beautiful. I look at the pictures all the time. He's my friend on Facebook. By friend, I mean we don't talk. We just look at each other's pictures.
Yeah.
That kind of friend, But yeah, no, he looks awesome. And those guys. It's
an awesome gym, man. I like it there. I don't know. I'm happy to be back in it, man. And he's not being hard on me or anything. I guess he can see I'm an older guy trying to get back into it, so he's not rough on me. I like that. But I just decided the other day, I got a pro boxing fight coming up. I haven't done any of this in forever. And then Rob was talking to my son about a tournament, and I was like, man, I think I want to do that. So then I was just hitting the punching bag, and I was like, all right. So I saw they were an odd man out on the mat. I didn't have a mouthpiece or cup or anything. I was like, man, but I saw this guy sitting there that everybody's grappling. So I was like, hey, Rob, I'll go in there and roll with him a little bit. And I was doing like every other round because I've recovered from COVID and I haven't grappled in forever. So my body's just sucks. So then I didn't realize they were doing like 8-minute rounds. So I thought it was like 3 or 4. And I did okay for like the first 3 or 4 minutes. And then I was done. Then I took a round off. Then I grappled somebody else, took a round off. I think I did 3 rounds. And then I went back to the heavy bag and did maybe another 30 minutes on that. But I'm going to get back into it and try to get my body ready for the 26th. And I mean, I spent $75 to enter the tournament. I'm not backing out.
if you're doing 8-minute rounds, this is the way I look at it. If you're doing 8-minute rounds, that first 4 minutes, right? That's your offense.
Exactly.
And then the last 4 minutes is all defense because I ain't got nothing left.
No.
I'm just learning how to keep my elbows tight.
Yeah.
Make sure I don't get submitted. So.
Oh yeah, I got submitted plenty.
Yeah. How old are you now, Keith?
39 here in like 2 weeks. So 38 right now.
But it props you though. Like either way, I'm 44. I can't remember what you are, Gary. What are you, Gary? 41. So yeah, so we're all like in the mid range. And hell, the other thing is like nowadays 44 is not that bad. Like it's not like the Golden Girls. They were like 50 and we thought they were ancient. Nowadays 50-year-olds are hot. It's a different thing. Right? Yeah, exactly. We age, we're getting better with our age. Everything's different. But no, like props to you, like for not saying I'm too old. Resurrecting your career. And if anything else, one thing I do want to say though, I was thinking this earlier and I want to mention it. I don't think, and Gary, I know you don't know, so I want to kind of bring this up. Carlos Turner deserves some credit, right? So Carlos Turner is this guy that did sports jiu-jitsu, right? Which is a combination of Japanese jiu-jitsu and karate. And I'll be honest, like a lot, not with Carlos, but with some of the others, like, I was in a group for Brazilian jiu-jitsu where we kind of made fun of those guys just because those guys try to pretend they were us. Like they'd be like, I hate MMA and the UFC is stupid. But then meanwhile, they're going to all these MMA events and doing that. You know what I mean? I was like, no, you guys want to be us, but you're not us, like whatever. And I don't mean that with Carlos. I just mean that in general with a lot of those guys. Carlos kind of broke away, and he's a guy in Logan.
Yeah.
And I think he got lumped in with those guys. And regardless of whatever, I will say this, and I want to say this, you know, on our podcast and live. And Carlos had guys like you and Josh Chambers and I'm terrible with names, but these guys
Charlie
are all
Mullins. Think you met him.
Charlie.
Yeah.
Who was
Bacchus.
Bacchus. Yes.
Bacchus, yeah.
Those. So just so you know, Gary, so a small group of guys, and everybody that we just mentioned had an MMA title somewhere in Kentucky. Right. And I will listen, you can say whatever you want. Like Kentucky MMA at that time was much like Logan. People like they just fucking love to fight. Didn't mean they trained. But those guys showed up and kicked some ass, and they didn't get the credit they deserved, especially during that time. So I just want to go out and give credit to those guys, because Keith was part of those guys. All of them were warriors. All of them were champions.
Man, those guys were good. Charlie
lost
his MMA debut, and then he went on a 22 fight winning streak at amateur.
Listen, was his MMA debut to Jamie Varner from the UFC?
That was his pro debut, and that's
what I'm saying.
I was pretty upset about that. So that was his pro debut. Varner, or no, it wasn't Varner. He fought some dude that was had just got cut from UFC. He was on the Ultimate Fighter, the #1 pick.
Yeah,
they were scheduled
exactly. That actually is my. I know, but I can't say the name, but because I can't remember because I have brain damage. But the guy is amazing. That guy. Yes, he fought multiple guys there, and this guy maybe last name is Stevens. He's my friend. I think it's sad that I can't remember.
I think it was Stevens. Yeah,
he was one of the Ultimate Fighters. It was fucking amazing. But also, I want to mention, and Gary, you might not know the story, and I'll kind of give you a lowdown. There was a MMA show called Gruesome MMA in Pikeville, Kentucky. Friends of mine.
I've heard of it.
Yeah. So Jamie Varner fought, who was the WEC world champion. Didn't kind of really pan out in the UFC because I think he had some issues.
I think Varner's fight ended up getting canceled over falsified blood work.
That's it. That's what I'm saying. It's a very good story that's it's forgotten now, but
it was there. Like Varner weighed in on Friday, and then Saturday, I don't know what went down. And he
just faked his blood work, and surprisingly, you know, they caught it. And I'm saying surprisingly because a lot of these promotions, nobody gives a shit, right? Somehow they caught it, and it was a big ordeal. But Jamie, I mean, he was famous, man. You know, and now Jamie does what I do. He's a medical device salesman. I still know him. Rich Clemente, a bunch of other guys that do what I do now. But anyway, it's a big deal, man. And again, so these guys were like, they were bringing in former UFC champions or UFC champions or Ultimate Fighters to fight these guys in Logan, trained by Carlos Turner, who just Keith said, like a lot of them just were like jumping in fights and winning because they're good athletes. But like, again, credit still goes to Carlos, who never got credit for all of this. And I don't think, you know, anybody's brought it up, and that's why I'm doing it now. Like, you know, I don't know. I hope to God that everybody listens to it. I just want to say, like, props to you guys and props to Carlos for taking this little tiny town in Logan, West Virginia, that a lot of people make fun of, especially now because the opioid epidemic and everything else, right? It's awful, right? You guys get a fucking terrible name, but guys like you, Josh Chambers,
I still love it, man. That's still. I mean, I left. We had a really good opportunity to you know, for work for my wife, but you know, I'm in Lexington now, but Logan's still home. It always will be. I know they got a lot going on, but there's a lot of good there as well. But
but you're saying basically I'm in Lexington now, motherfucker. Like don't I know.
Everybody.
No, but that's the thing. Like for a small group of guys, and you were in that group, man, and you guys deserve credit. There's 5 or 6 of you that got no credit. You guys are like true. Like I get a lot of credit for whatever in West Virginia, but like as a fighter, you guys kind of forgotten, and you guys were the pioneers, and you guys were going to Hazard, Kentucky, and all these other places and holding belts and stuff. Like, listen, man, like nobody ever talks about that, and they should.
Yeah,
and that's why I'm doing it.
I won the heavyweight title at 168 pounds over there. I had a fight. I had a fight scheduled for 155, and my opponent pulled out a week before. Then they switched me to the 170 title fight. I was like, I'll fight 170. I just wanted the title fight. You know, I was undefeated, won some fights. I wanted the title. I was like, I'll fight the 170 guy. I just won't, you know, I don't need to cut any weight, because I was walking around closer to 160. So they were like, yeah, we'll get you that fight. So I put on a few pounds that week. And then he pulled out 2 days before. Then the 185 guy, the 205 guy were both matched up. And this was when they didn't have a commission. There was no governing body over MMA in Kentucky. It was like the Wild West. They were pulling people out of the crowd to fight. They would literally make announcements. If anybody wants to fight, come down, we'll get you gloved up. But so I'm on the phone with the promoter, Doug Day, heck of a dude. He was like, hey, how about the heavyweight title? I was like, yeah, let's do it. He calls the heavyweight champion on three-way and offers him the fight. And then the guy started laughing because he knew I was scheduled for the 155 title, and he's walking around at 240. And he started laughing about it and like, yeah, let's do it. And then, man, I knocked him out cold in the first round. Yeah, put him out. Yeah, put him to sleep. It wasn't like my most impressive. He had a lot of power, man. He had knocked he was 12-1 at the time. I think I was 2-0. He was 12-1. His only loss was to Greg Maynard, and you know Greg was legit at that time. Greg was like,
he was a beast, right?
Yeah, and that's when Greg was in really top shape. I was training with Greg every day, and so his only loss was Greg, and then I mean Greg was a monster, and I was kind of intimidated by him, but you know I would fight anybody. So I go down there, and
obviously
my stand up was a little.
Yeah.
This was before I knew how to box, my jiu-jitsu, and you know I was just a white belt that had trained a few months with a blue belt. So my jiu-jitsu wasn't crazy, but I was really athletic. I was really quick, really flexible. I get this dude. I put him against the cage, and then he starts trying to pull a guillotine on me, and I end up, just kind of taking him down. And this was right. I was having these spinal issues just before I broke my back, but like my neck, man, if you had touched the back of my head, just like pulled it down slightly, it felt like my whole head was about to rip off. So I wouldn't really defend it. If somebody would put me in something, I would just go with it. And, but he like locks my head down, and I ended up taking his back, I lock in a body triangle, and then just pounded his head in. And, I don't know if he went out to the punches or the body triangle. I had it really, really good. It was really tight. I would hit him a few times, tighten it up, hit him, tighten it up. And that fight's on YouTube. But yeah, I had no striking at the time. But it was that was pretty cool. I finished him. And then right after that fight, is when they actually got a commission in Kentucky. And then I had to weigh in at least 206 to defend my title. So I had to give it back to him. So
yeah, and those commissions, I dealt with them a lot. They're super nice when they finally got them.
Yeah,
it was still like,
yeah, there was a guy Todd. I can't remember his last name.
Yeah, dude, that guy was amazing, right?
Yeah.
Kind of, he pro wrestled, right? He was kind of chubby, right? No neck.
He ran the
great guy.
The
guy named
the wrestling commission over there. Yeah,
he was a great guy.
Can't remember his name, but he was a good dude.
So Gary, this is what I was thinking about when he was talking. Did you ever hear the name Greg Maynard by chance?
Yeah, I've heard those names. Actually, rewinding before you get to that, you were talking about those like commissions and just kind of like pulling people out of the audience. I think we've mentioned it on here a couple times. There's a place called Screaming Willie's up in Columbus, and in Columbus, Ohio, I would go to. That's where I started watching like live fights, and it was. I mean, you would get in line, and then some promoter guy, would be walking out. Now, at the time, I didn't know shit. I hadn't done jiu-jitsu. I was just there to watch a good show. And it would be like, hey, guy with a bald head and tattoos, like that's the guy. And he would go and get somebody would glove him up, and he'd be like, hey, other guy with tattoos and bald head. And so 3 guys from the audience or from the line before they got their tickets would be pulled in, and they were fighting that night. And so I was there for those shows where it was like, man, and this in Ohio had the commission. This is probably 2003, I think. I mean, it was maybe 2004, somewhere in there. it was before, I know it was before my daughter was born, so it had to be 2003, 2004. And I was going to watch those fights. I'm kind of happy that I didn't get involved in anything as far as jiu-jitsu or anything striking, because I could see myself being the guy who would be like a journeyman, never that great, just keep doing it and getting my ass beat.
But I think these guys got amazing story. Yes and no. Here's what I'm thinking is that you would have been at a time just like Keith and myself when you're just above or before the precipice, meaning that you're just before everybody started training, which means you're fighting people of equal skill. So then right. It's still like so for example, when a lot of people ask me, they're like, so did you fight MMA? And I said, yeah, but let's also, I want to preface this because I try to be honest. I'm like, when I say that, I'm also talking about people that didn't train. So I don't want you to think that I am like, all your favorite fighters. I fought people that did not train, like, and I won an, quote unquote MMA fight, but I want to make sure that what you're doing now is leaps and bounds ahead of what I did. Like, like for sure, I could take all the credit in the world, but dude, I did a lot of stuff with people that didn't train. So did Keith. And, it's a good and bad about that time. It was a free for all. It's fun.
Yeah.
It was great stories. But I also think it's important for us to say, like, listen, man, these guys of today, like, you guys are amazing. You're fighting guys of equal skill level that, it's amazing. It's not what I did. And again, it's just because I want to do that. Not that you have to do that, Keith, because I love your stories. But I'm saying I do that because I'm trying not to pretend I'm something that I wasn't, right? Like, you guys are awesome. If you take a fight now, you're taking a fight against a guy that does jiu-jitsu and blah, blah, blah. Like I took fights against a guy that walked off a fucking bar stool.
We still have those guys though.
You still do.
They're still around.
Well, if you can find one of those bar stool guys, I mean, I'm 41. I don't know what I got to do, but
yeah. No,
I'll be honest. My favorite fights are matching those kind of guys up with one another. Like the guys, like two guys who would get destroyed by anybody else, having them fight each other. I love those fights. I don't know why, but
no, I do too. But that's what I said. In West Virginia, people love tough man, rough and rowdy, and those are two of those guys. They love it, and it doesn't mean that I don't like. I watch it. Like, I just get bored after a while. If I have to watch 60 of those fights, and one of those nights, right.
I like seeing somebody. I like seeing guys pick up their first win. That's especially, somebody that's lost a few fights. Like my buddy Josh Bowling, he was 0-3 going into his fight last week, and he's really smooth too, man. I mean, but all three of his losses, his three previous fights, those opponents are all now pro fighters. So he had some tough matchups. So he was 0-3 amateur fighter, and they all ended up going pro. So then he fought another guy who was a debut from Charleston, and Josh, came out and outclassed the dude and looked really good. And a lot of people were surprised because of his record. I'm like, if you saw his previous fights, you'll see that he wasn't fighting dudes off the street. Like, he was 0-3 against good fighters. When he had his hand raised, I just thought it was awesome, man. I mean, I know I don't train with the guy, but I felt like I won something, man. I was just so happy for the guy, being 0-3 and then getting your hand raised, for the first time. I love seeing that.
Another guy that was in that group of famous, like, I cannot, like, Gary, this is good to talk to you about this. I cannot say enough about these guys that nobody talks about. Like, Josh was another one, right? I think they knew a bunch of famous. Like, is he not cousins with somebody famous or no?
Who's that?
The one you just mentioned, Josh Bowling, or no?
No, I don't think so. There's a guy, you may be thinking of Justin Ball. He's cousins with Jason Dent, maybe.
That's who I'm thinking. Justin Ball. Yeah. But to get back what I was saying earlier, Gary and Keith, was about Greg Maynard, for example.
Yeah.
I'll talk about two fights.
Animal. Yeah.
And Greg was, if you looked at him, for example, like, so when I had the first fight in UFC, or like an MMA in West Virginia, they played it on HDNet with Boss Rutan and the other guy, right? We all know Boss Rutan, but there was the other guy, right? Whoever that guy was, but anyway, they played it.
Not Michael Chavello, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm seeing the guy's face, and I can't think of his name.
And they made fun of Greg Maynard the whole entire time. They're like, two butterballs are out here fighting, right? Like literally making fun of him. But it was a great fight. But regardless, and that was kind of beyond Greg Maynard's. He was done. He was like most of you guys, just like now, right?
He wasn't actively training anymore. He only took that fight because it was in his hometown. That was
Absolutely.
it. That's the only thing.
I knew that. And
his whole career, he wanted to fight in West Virginia, and that was his first opportunity. And he told me he's not in shape. He's like, I got to finish this guy quick. But he really wanted to fight in West Virginia. And then the first fight in West Virginia was like 3 miles from his house, so he couldn't pass on that.
No, and it was another
one
in
the fight until he just gassed out, and I hated that for him.
I had him equally matched. So did I have him. I had Billy Ash equally matched. Those are two fights the commission took away. Actually, the commission took several fights away with guys that weren't like outclassing them by any means, but I just knew that Greg Maynard and I knew Billy Ash had not trained that much, right? They were taking fights because they could fight in West Virginia. So I had them fights with equally, and the commission shut them down with, and they ended up fighting two guys that were way better than them. At that time, not in general. But to preface this, I want to say, like, so Greg lost that fight. Billy Ash lost that fight, the one I'm talking about. But before that, Greg Maynard had fought Jonathan Ivey. Do you know who that is, Gary or Keith?
Yep.
Ivey, if you guys
got a ton of fights. He fights every weekend somewhere.
He's not in the UFC, so a lot of people might know him, but he's got over 100 fights, probably over 100 wins. Maybe 20 to 50 losses. But the guy, just like you said, he fights all the time, and he's amazing. He does. He did the rock bottom in a pro MMA fight, meaning he did whatever this nonsense is and dropped the flying elbow. I mean, he's amazing. And Greg Maynard beat him, and before leg locks were popular, Jonathan Ivey was submitting people with leg locks, and he got Greg in a few leg locks, and Greg just pounded him out. Like, he'd get in the leg lock and just punch him in the face, beat that guy. So this is a guy that could be in the UFC. Greg beat him. Then lo and behold, Greg Maynard fought Stipe Miocic. Miocic maybe, and he should be, because the UFC doesn't market him and they hate him. He should be the greatest fighter of all time because he's broke every UFC record. It's still an active fight in the UFC, and they won't give him fights because they hate him. They blackball him. And listen, the guy's a firefighter. He's an American hero. He's fucking amazing. He everybody. But anyway, he fought Greg in NAAFS, which is a Cleveland, Ohio organization, which is my hometown. But anyway. And he beat Greg with leg kicks mainly, right? He stopped him with leg kicks, if I'm not mistaken. And that's back when, like, Stipe was trying to be Crow Cop, right?
They were all calling him the next Crow Cop.
Yeah. So he was trying to do some kickboxing bullshit.
He had the same shorts and all that.
Same flat.
So I was in on all that. And all the NAAFS. Awesome. I remember all that. So you guys are talking my language, and I remember these fights. I remember Stipe when they were calling him the next Crow Cop, and on his way up, at that time he had only had like 3 or 4 fights when he was fighting NAAFS, and he had everything you wanted in a heavyweight fighter at that time, as far as like on the trajectory, and so I remember those fights, like
amazing, right? Amazing.
It was great.
And not to mention too, like briefly, Jessica Evil Eye came from there, NAAFS, Cody No Love Garbrandt, multiple those 3 in particular, right? Great organization. Greg Klekus used to run that. Nicole was their matchmaker. I just want to give those guys, that group, props because they're amazing. But nonetheless, again, another person from Keith No's group that was fighting UFC fighters, maybe fighting the best heavyweight of all time outside of Fedor. And it was not like a beating. I mean, like, like he lost.
Greg, we were talking about that. The game plan was to wrestle Stipe, put him on the cage because of the leg kicks. But because Greg could take my leg kicks, and I have some really brutal leg kicks, he was like, he's like, I've ate yours. He said, this guy's not going to hurt me. But then he told me after, he's like, Keith, you've got good leg kicks for West Virginia. But like this guy, I mean, that's just a whole nother level. That's the next level of fighting there. Like Stipe's several levels above me, but yeah, like that was he tried to prove a point that he could stand and take those leg kicks, and he said after he tried to go to the wrestling after that, but his legs were gone.
No doubt, no doubt.
Yeah,
but that's my point. Like for Gary that doesn't know, this little tiny group.
Yeah,
I mean, it's fighting UFC fighters. Jamie Varner.
We had some good people. Yeah, Josh Stepp was cross training with us.
Yeah,
he was, I believe, a multiple-time state champion in wrestling in Kentucky. And Greg's boxing was really good. Greg's kickboxing was pretty good. My jiu-jitsu wasn't all that great, but I was teaching them what I knew. So we had a good little team. And then like Charlie Mullins and Josh Chambers. This was like Matt hadn't started yet when I was training. Matt kind of came along like maybe months after I got out of it. But man, Josh and Charlie, like I've never seen anybody that was in that kind of shape. Those guys, when they started fighting 5-round fights, like they were unstoppable. And because they're coming out, they're finishing the 5th round just as fresh as they were stepping into the cage. And that's why they were so successful.
One guy we didn't mention was Cornelius Godfrey.
Oh yeah, he's the best ever to come out of West Virginia.
Yeah, so Gary, you don't know, this guy was probably 135 ish, right? I think
Yeah.
Here's the problem at that time, there was not those little divisions, so a lot of those guys fought 155 and above. But he was a little guy.
Well, a lot of it. I mean, I remember watching, and you probably at the time, Uriah Faber was probably the best 35-45er at that time. Then you also had Jens Pulver at that weight class, and a lot of these guys. They found a little bit of success in the WEC when the WEC came along, but I remember watching Uriah Faber and Jens Pulver back in the beginning before there was a 135. And like you said, they had to fight 55 because there was nobody at 35 for those guys.
Yeah.
It was very tough. And this guy, just so you know, he was probably 100%, just like Keith said, the best unknown guy. He ended up dying. Keith, remind me of did he die? How did he die?
Motorcycle accident in Columbus.
Yeah. He was already making a big name for himself. I had him scheduled to be on one of our fights. He was even in the press, doing the pre-fight stuff and everything. And then he died. But I'm telling you 100%. And this is not because he died. It's 100%. He would have been in the UFC, right?
He was 8-1 or 9-1 at that time. He had fights scheduled coming up, and I mean, he was really, really good. I think he was training at George Grugel's main gym in Columbus, or was it Columbus or Cincinnati? I'm not sure.
Cincinnati.
Yeah, so he was.
George's in Cincinnati.
Yeah, so that's where
he started with Carlos, and that's what changed. Like, here's the thing: I'm giving Carlos a lot of credit, but what Carlos didn't have Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He didn't have certain tools, just like I do. So I'm not knocking him. We all have deficits. He has some deficits. Cornelius, which we called him Corny for sure, he knew there was some deficits, and he was training at Ground Zero Huntington. Come to our gym and train with Wes Hansen, who was a big MMA guy at the time, and NAAFS, and some other guys, and then of course going to George Grigel in Cincinnati. He was doing everything that he needed to do. That's why I say 100% he was going to be in the UFC, because he was already training with Rich Franklin and George Grigel, who's in the UFC, and not to mention the other guys that were coming through. And everything I heard was, this guy is the shit. Like everything.
He was legit.
And that's why also, like I had when after he died, I had a little memorial jiu-jitsu tournament in, I can't remember, Madison actually, because Greg Dillon helped me put it on, but gave all the money to his wife or fiance, whatever she was, to help his funeral expenses. But anyway, the point is, the guy, he should be mentioned on this because he was part of your team. Beautiful man, beautiful person, just like all you guys. And in a roundabout,
I had known him since he was little, man. He graduated with my little brother. We played a lot of basketball, flag football stuff with him growing up. He was an amazing athlete. He was an awesome football player. He could have played basketball. He was on the wrestling team, state champion wrestler. But if he had decided to switch to basketball, he would have been starting basketball for Logan High as well. Like, he was really, really good. He could have done whatever sport he wanted. and he worked hard. I mean, he would outwork anybody was the thing. It wasn't just all natural. He had some natural ability, but I mean, he would just outwork anybody, and just took it so serious, man.
Yeah. Well, listen, man, and I'm glad we got to mention him on here because I don't want him to be forgotten. You know, I mean, this guy was a legend. He still is a legend. He shouldn't be forgotten. And he was a pioneer in West Virginia MMA and his pioneer in life, and he would have been awesome. But nonetheless, all those things created a great team, which created a better Keith No, which now is making New Line cage fighting. So we're back to that. But listen, man, I'm telling you, Gary, this is the first time I've been to a show in a long time. You know, seeing those fighters come out of the fights afterwards and been interviewed in front of a large banner with New Line cage fighting or whatever else, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Listen, it reminds me of a little UFC in West Virginia, and it's because listen, if you're gonna put your life on the line, that's what I always say. Like fighting's, you could die. If you're gonna put your life on the line and not get paid, it better be for something that's gonna live a lifetime.
Yeah.
And you're helping these guys live a lifetime. Here's the one. I will say this. I want to mention this too. Like, so, you know, I helped with our two fighters, right? We had Kyle James and Devin Stanley fight, and they did great.
Yeah.
And I watched the video afterwards that you guys put out, whoever, you know, wherever it was at, somebody posted it. The commentary was awesome. Chris McKinney did great. In particular, just because he talked to me beforehand, he was a little nervous.
Yeah,
he did great. I did not realize how bad Devin Stanley's, like, he beat the dog shit out of that. And I don't mean that.
I was
watching the fight and I was like, holy shit! Like, but I want to say that production
you were probably hearing from the crowd yelling, "Stop the fight!" Like that was.
Yes.
Skylar,
it was not that way live. It was not.
Skylar was so tough, man. The guy he's fighting, Skylar, and the thing is like they probably would have stopped that if that had been somebody else. But like Skylar had the same thing happen in his last fight, and he was fighting Colin Caprini. Colin's awesome.
Oh, Colin, from Morgantown.
Colin was, I mean, was just putting it all over him, and then Colin landed a head kick. And then Skylar counters the head kick with a right cross, and then just changes and within, you know, a few more punches later, the fight was over. And Skylar's pulled off a few upsets. He's came out and taken some beatings, and then just lands big right hands. I mean, he doesn't train. He works in a factory. He lifts weights. He was a former track and field guy, and man, he's from Ohio. But
I was getting all the credits, damn Logan people. Fuck Ohio. That's where
he might be Logan, Ohio, though. I don't know. But
that's where Gary's from.
Hey, that's how I know I know where Logan is.
The Skylar, man, he's like the toughest guy we have, man.
Legit.
I mean,
100%.
He'll take a beating and just keep cutting. He's coming forward the whole time. Like he's not backing up. He's not looking to get, you know, he's not circling. He's coming forward. And he kept coming after Devin, and Devin was just staying out of range. Devin's really smooth, really smart. But man, I hate seeing Skylar. I hated that seeing, because he was hurt. Like I thought maybe he had a broken rib or something. He was kind of doubled over, and then Devin was just landing head kicks on him, and Skylar kept coming forward, eating shins to the face. Actually, he was blocking those shins with his face. But yeah.
Gary, did you see the fight by chance or no?
I did not.
Just so you know, like here,
it's online somewhere, right? I can buy it. Yeah, we need to make sure we get all that information so I can see it.
Yeah, but let me tell you that. So I will tell you in between round. I mean, everything that Keith just said was spot on. That guy was a warrior, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, Devin was lighting him up, right? Yeah. To enough, but you know, like as a corner, like I'm focused on like how can we finish this fight. So I'm telling them stuff like, hey, you got to do this, you got to do that. Not really focused too much on the other guy. I'm just focused on what we can do. Mm-hmm. But I'm telling you, watching the video, like, and I will also say this. I want to preface this by Robert Riley, who is a MMA judge and a boxing, kickboxing judge in West Virginia. It's top notch referee.
He is. He's done thousands of fights. Yeah.
Thousands of fights. In fact, he was one of the people that testified when we were trying to make MMA legal in West Virginia. He's an amazing man. But anyway, the commentary was like really rough on him.
Yeah.
And
They
look,
were
those are
a
all
little bit. Yeah.
I don't know the other two, but Chris McKinney is my friend.
Yeah.
I get it. I get it 100%. But Robert Riley did a good job, meaning he let the fight go because, just like you said, he knows those fighters.
Yeah.
And
Skylar was never staggered.
yes,
He wasn't
exactly.
like he wasn't wobbly. He was like
he was hurt.
He was
but
hurt.
He was still in it.
Yeah. I mean, he was his Devin landed a big body shot, man, a big heel right to the ribs, and it had him down. He ended up. I mean, he got up, but you can see he was keeping his elbow in, really protecting that, but it wasn't stopping him from coming forward. He was never staggered. So,
and just so you know, that was the corner work. I was like, Devin, land that fucking sidekick the whole time.
Yeah.
I was like, ready to quit. His body's hurt.
Yeah.
And then I think between the second and third round, I was like, dude, just land that thing again. The fight's over.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, my legs are tired. So he was like, I was like, okay.
His legs are tired from landing about 40 head kicks.
So I was like, okay, well, scratch that. Let's do this. Like, so it wasn't that I didn't know, but if anybody's been in a fight and you beat the shit out of somebody, and that's what Devin did, he literally beat the shit out of this kid. He was gassed, man. Yeah. It's like so if anybody saw a Toro Gotti Mickey Ward, that's what happens. If you shoot your load and you're trying to end the fight and the other guy's a badass, well, you're done. Right. That's what happened. Yeah. Right. So,
well, we've seen that. I mean, and it's all the way up the ranks too. I mean, we've seen it Shane Carwin, Brock Lesnar. Right?
Oh yeah.
Shane, he beat the dog shit out of Brock Lesnar for that first round. There was almost zero offense out of Brock Lesnar in the first round, and he spent everything he had in the last 20 seconds of that first round, and then didn't have anything for the second. So you got to be careful. All those guys, if you've got a durable guy, you have to be careful on how much you put out, because if they're still around in the second, you might be in trouble.
And also, so you know, Gary and Keith, the very fucking next day, Devin Stanley entered a 5K and took fucking first. Just so you know, that's how good his cardio is. The very next day after a fight. And that was, which was funny, because the next fighter was Kyle. Yeah. And Kyle looked at him on the floor and he goes, God damn, if he's tired, I'm fucked. Holy shit. But that's what happened, for exactly what you said.
Yeah.
He took everything. And so Skylar deserves all the credit. He tried everything to finish this guy. And Skylar lasted until he finished him right in the third, if I'm not mistaken. But,
they stopped it. Yeah.
But Skylar, it wasn't like he knocked him out. Like it was
Scott. He put him down. Skylar jumped up, was ready to go, and then Robert stopped the fight. And I he probably felt bad stopping it, because Skylar was ready to come forward and keep going. But I mean, he stopped it to save Skylar from getting hurt. So
good stoppage compared, probably with the commentary, it made it worse, right? Meaning those guys didn't do a good job, but the whole
watch that fight with the volume down.
They're like, stop the fight, stop the fight. Because I mean,
well, okay, so now that kind of like there's a segue into a different topic, is like how much, first of all, reffing is probably one of the toughest things ever, and so props to anybody who I've done refereeing just for jiu-jitsu, and I've screwed up, and I try to own my mistakes, but it's hard. And it doesn't matter what sport it is, whether it's baseball or boxing or basketball, like you're going to make mistakes as a referee, and you try to the best of your ability to call it fair and down the middle, and try not to have any persuasion. But even in a small promotion like this, but all the way up to the UFC, we've seen in the UFC, commentators screaming, stop the fight, I can't believe he's letting it go on. Absolutely. How important is it for commentators to just kind of remove themselves from this? Maybe you can say, and I'm not saying anybody said anything wrong or anything like that. It's emotional and it's hard. I do it when I'm watching it at home. I can't believe that you're letting this shit go on. It's crazy. How important is it for commentators and people outside the ring to let the ref do their job? Because they've got the best seat in the house. And they kind of need to let the ref try to figure things out. We can talk about it afterwards and say, hey, let's touch base on this match where, he took 27 unanswered punches to the head. And,
maybe, if you're yelling at the ref, that messes with their head, and then they're going to screw up something else.
Right. I think the big one was the big one was in the UFC was the British guy, and I'm trying Hardy.
Yeah.
Dan Hardy was like, this referee's terrible or whatever, and he started screaming at the referee, and you got in the middle of something that I understand you're a fighter, and you understand that you're worried about the protection of other fighters, but you kind of gotta let the ref.
More than Dan Hardy, I think of what's his face, the guy that does commentary now that has a feud with Cormier, the little guy, 135-pounder that
redheaded dude.
That's Felder that beat Uriah Faber 3 times, that crushed him. Reyes or no? Is it Dominic?
Dominic Reyes?
Dominic Cruz.
Okay.
So do you remember his last fight with Josh Rosenthal, where he got beat, but that Josh Rosenthal was drunk? He could smell alcohol in his breath.
Smell like alcohol and cigarettes.
Yeah, which again, I watched the fight. I don't feel like any of that was true. I feel like he lost the fight, right? Which is why Dominic Cruz is kind of like a douche now. Like he went from a 10 to a 5 because of how he acted after the fight. How is it to further Gary's comment and stuff? How was it as a promoter? What do you think during that? Do you just tune it out? Or...
Man, there's nothing I can do about it. You have to move on, and I don't even talk to anybody about it. I'm friends with these guys, but these officials will probably tell you that I don't even speak to them at events. I try not to, because I don't want people thinking that I'm like, hey man, this guy's really good at this, give him a chance, or talking to the judges like this is the hometown guy right here. I don't talk to anybody. I mean, those guys have refereed thousands of fights. Billy, Robert, there's nothing I can tell those guys. I mean, they've seen it all. I've refereed maybe 10 MMA boxing matches. I've judged a lot more, but there's nothing I'm going to tell those guys. And I've been an official in a lot of different sports, and really, if anybody's coming from the crowd and trying to tell you how to do your job, you're going to get pissed off. So I'm not going to tell them anything. And he's probably seeing something that we're not seeing too. And he's done it 1,000 times. So like with that fight, I was in the back hallway, kind of watching through a doorway, and then I was just seeing Skylar take a beating, and I was like, man, they need to stop this. They need to stop this fight. And then Skylar would go down and just jump. I mean, he would hop back up. Like, he wasn't just like slowly climbing up. I mean, he's hopping up, ready to go, like beating his hands, ready to get back to it. And then as soon as Robert says fight, head kick or something. But he's ready to go. Even the last knockdown, he was still ready to fight.
Here's what I would say on that fight, as the guy that, as the corner man of the guy that won.
Yeah.
All the way to the end, I was concerned that Skylar could win the fight. That means Skylar, okay, right? Yeah. If I was concerned,
he's hurt. He's hurt taking the beating. Then he just throws he'll just throw a massive hook that could put anybody to sleep. So he's getting hurt, but he's still dangerous. Skylar is going to be dangerous to the end of the fight. He's always.
That being said, I also see the announcer, until the announcer, because Ethan and I were, we watched it. He was one of the corner men, but until we watched it, we're like, holy shit, because we were just looking at the way shit. We didn't watch stop the fight, kind of shit. Yeah. But I'm not against what they said either. Like, I get what they're saying, because they, like, some of the commentary was, hey, you're not getting paid for this.
Yeah, it's an amateur.
Yeah, so he was like,
Skylar had to go to work the next night too.
Well, that's what they said. They're like, this guy's got to go work tomorrow. That belt have real gold, like all this stuff, which was funny, but it was good commentary and 100% spot on. So they were right. And I would also say, as a fighter, as Skylar, he probably was like, dude, let me fight, because it takes one, right? Yeah. So I think, because of what Gary said, had they stopped the fight in the Shane Carwin fight,
Yes.
I've seen Brock Lesnar make that epic comeback. Had they stopped the fight in the Mickey Ward Ataro Gotti 1, 2, 3, would have not saw that. Had they, I mean, we can go on and on.
Yeah.
Right. So listen, here, it's so hard to be a referee, right? It's so hard.
Yeah.
I think he did a great job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think Skyler is a warrior. I think listen, again, I think the whole event was like, you have no control of the judges, referees. That's outside of your control. But as a West Virginia event overall, the promotion was great. The judging was great, which also reminds me, what did you think, Gary? You didn't probably see this. So our guy, Kyle James, easily beat his guy, but they announced the other guy is the winner, right?
They I think they when they totaled up the scorecard, I don't know if they flipped the court, they did something wrong. Because I even saw the announcer when they handed him the scorecard, he was looking at it weird. It was like kind of like, he's like, man, I have to read this. And he didn't want to. He was telling, he's like, dude, this is wrong. I don't want to read this, but he can't look back at the commission and say, are you sure? He can't do that.
Yeah.
You know, he has no say.
Like, do his job. Everybody's
if he's questioning what the scorecards they give him, that's going to make him look really bad. It's going to make me look bad because he's announcing for me. So like, he's basically, his voice is like, I'm saying it pretty much. So he's like, he's not going to do it. He's like, all right, I'll read it. But he was kind of dreading the reaction he was going to get. Yeah. And then he reads it out and then everybody's booing. Then the commission's like, whoa.
They did a good job.
Yeah. They just messed up. Yeah.
People that don't know, and Gary's one of them, right? So what
did they just have the names mixed up and they thought they knew who won? Yeah. They knew who won. They just didn't know his name.
They fixed it right away. Yeah. So what happened? Yeah. Our guy, Kyle, which would apparently, and Keith, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but apparently this happened maybe 1 or 2 other times, because
at our last event that happened 2 or 3 times. And once it was the announcer's fault because I think the scorecard had like one judge gave it to red corner, the other 2 judges gave it to a draw. So it was like a majority draw. He saw it. They just handed it to him. He just looks at it like, okay, red, draw. Okay, red wins. And he read it out. He read it out wrong. But then there were 2 of them. I think they messed up. They messed something up, and then he had to reread the result. So then we end up with our photographers taking pictures, and you get some of those pictures. The guy's hands raised. He's got a belt on, and then the result of the fight was a draw.
But it was the same thing. So like that's how this fight went, right? Like Kyle clearly won.
Yeah.
I think he knocked
2 knockdowns. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He knocked him down at least almost every round. You know, the other guy landed 2 good punches, which was the end of round 1, maybe, or 2 and a 3, right at the end of the round.
Yeah.
But he had already been knocked down that round. He knocked down the next round, but it was clear who won.
Yeah.
They announced the other guy. But I've already been through, like,
I saw you didn't really react a whole lot. I think you kind of you knew, you've seen it. You probably saw the commission like, no, like you were, and I think Kyle looked at you confused and you were like, no, like, it's cool, hold on.
Everybody, I'm so thankful. I've been through this stuff since the 90s, right? And that was the beautiful thing, and both those guys were so happy that I was there for things like that. But anyway, like, so they announced the wrong guy and the other guy raises his hand. Yeah. And I was like, and I did say, I was like, what the fuck? Like, really loud. So did everybody else. But I immediately saw right in front of my, one of the guys with the red jacket on, who's probably was like, hold on. So I was like, hey, just chill out. Because then Kyle looked at me like you said, and I said, hey, just chill out. The other guy looked at me, right? Well, like, I don't know what he was looking at, but I was like, hey, I'm not mad at you. Don't worry. That's what I told him. I said, don't worry. Just be quiet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I don't know what the look meant, but I think he was like, it's not my fault. And I was like, I know. Yeah. Just chill out. Like, we got you. And so they corrected it. And even when he came over, he said something. And I said, hey, buddy, man, it's not your fault. You did a great job, which is true. Like, everybody gets to win or lose, even if you do a terrible job. It doesn't matter. You got in the ring. And that's my point. Like, I stand there, hold the ropes for the other people. And I said, man, I'm you should be thankful you're here. Like, I love you. We're thankful you're here, and this was great. And so, of course, Kyle was happy. But the
it's so important. Yeah, well, it's so important that we remember that you know, I always, and it's in the Henzo documentary at the end where he talks about the quote, it is not the critic that matters by Roosevelt. And it really is like, yeah, you know, when we have guys go to jiu-jitsu competitions, or if they fight in Tough Man, or if they fight in an MMA fight, like, we obviously we want our friends to win and we want our friends to succeed, or if it's ourselves, we want ourselves to succeed. But it's easily forgotten that, like, the courage and the bravery it takes to actually do it. Just the doing it is so like, man, there's so many people who are sitting on the couch who don't charge into it, that aren't courageous. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but they're not. There's so many people who are not courageous in anything. It doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu or boxing or a fight sport, but like, it's easy to talk about these guys and to say things about these guys, but the courage it takes to get up and go do the thing, whether it's start a business or to like go on, people who go on diets, who are trying to lose weight, you know, they're 400 pounds and they're like, oh man, I'm trying to turn my life around. People who, it is the stepping into the arena to do the thing that people don't want to do, is not just that, the getting up and going and doing it isn't celebrated enough.
And it should be.
Yeah.
And that's what you're saying. It should be. And that was my point at the end of that thing, you know. And again, luckily I've been through this nonsense a million times, right? Which makes you calmer. Like, that was the cool thing about this fight, is that just as one of the commissioners said, or one of the ringside judges said, he's like, when's the last time you've been at one of these? I don't know. But both of my fighters who, you know, I've not cornered before, they were like, man, I can't believe how calm you are.
Yeah.
My point was, I've been here like a million times. This is nothing new. But I've been through all that stuff. And the point is, when I'm mad, it's not I'm mad at the other fighter, right? Because I was in the same thing in Glenville, where I hated the other team, absolutely hated them, right? And they announced as the other team as a winner, and I knew my guy won. And I was like, blah, 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 blah. And they fixed it, right? But the point is, even if they didn't, that's not the fighter's fault. Why am I mad at the other guy? He did his job. My guy did his job. It's a bunch of other people that need to sort it out. Yeah. And just as I've told my fighters a million times, if you leave it up to the judges and you lose, that's your fault, right? And it's our fault. Yeah. You should have knocked him out. You should have finished the fight, right? So if I truly believe that, then I shouldn't freak out. Look, and there's bad decisions, but why am I mad at the other team? Even in that, and again, that case, I hated the other team, right, for other reasons, but why? And I'll tell you, the other fight was, just so you know, just because I want to mention it, was this guy Scott Burdett and Chris Martindale. And later, I ended up training with Chris Martindale for years, right? So if I would have been like, fuck Chris Martindale, he's a loser, blah, 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 he lost that fight. Well, then how can I be friends with that guy when I talk shit about it? And luckily I didn't. And then me and Chris are friends to this day. But the ultimate thing is, like, Keith does his job. He's a promoter. The fighters do their job. The judges do their job. The referees do their job. We're all human. We make mistakes. Like I have to go to, I have 3 boys. So I'm at basketball games every day. Referees make mistakes, right? Everybody's arguing about some bullshit call, like the other day, like this guy should have did. Well, look, he didn't see it. I saw it, because that's what but like, he didn't. He's not trying to fuck my kid or your kid. He just made a call. Right? Like, and that's what I try to remember. Like, he's just a dude. He doesn't give a shit who wins this game. He doesn't know my kid or your kid or anybody else. Like, so let's drop it. Like, it sucks. And that's what I want to teach my kid when it loses. Like, he'll be like, well, that referee fucked up. Like, yep, well, he did. But if you would have did this, this, and this, we wouldn't have been in that position, right? Like, it sucks. Yeah. But let's move on, right? And that's, I think that's where we are in your thing. What started this whole thing was, like, you saying the commentary was great. They did great. Honestly, they really did a great job. They brought me to the line. Like, I didn't know how bad. Like, that's the other thing. When I watched the fight, like, really, Devin was beating the crap out of that guy. Yeah.
You're not seeing that when you're coaching. You're not seeing the beating. You're like you're making sure that your guy's doing what he needs to do because this guy's still fighting. Like
he's still fighting.
Skyler's still dangerous. So Devin, you're not like, stop the fight. You're really like, all right, yeah, what's Devin doing? Is he keeping his hands up? Is he moving right? And that saved him a few times. There were a few times that Devin had Skyler in the corner just beating him. And then Skyler comes with a massive hook.
Yes.
But then Devin was still aware enough to, get out of the way of that. And Devin's got really good footwork. He's really quick. And he's like, as soon as Skyler's hips start to turn, starts to pivot, Devin was out. And then Skyler misses by a foot. But if that punch had landed, that would have done damage. And that happened several times.
And just so you know, too, like, here's the thing about Devin. I just want to throw this out there. Devin did karate with whoever the hell he did karate with.
I think it's grandpa, maybe. Yeah.
Fucking karate. So like, you know what I'm saying? So like when I was like talking, like what the way I would coach Devin and teach Devin is the opposite of the way he fought. However, I think that's the beauty of a good trainer is to say, look at a fighter, see what they're good at, and don't make them a carbon copy of what I think or what you think or whatever. Just take their skills and maximize their skills. So he switches stances. He throws karate kicks. He throws side kicks. He throws shit that I've never done karate.
Yeah.
So like when we're warming up in the corner, I was like, fucking throw that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like shit that I would never teach anybody, and that's what we came out with. I said, hey,
he's different, man. He's like Stephen Thompson in there. Like looks like a young Stephen Thompson. Yeah,
that's his favorite guy. And I said, throw that fucking side kick. A kick I would never tell Gary to throw. A kick that I would never tell anybody else to throw.
Yeah.
And I was even telling the other corner man because he was like, hey, like, what are we doing? I was like, just fucking let Devin be Devin. That's what we do. We should get out of the fucking way. Just go. And it was wonderful. And actually, the commentary was spot on. They're like, if Devin lands some more side kicks, the fight's over.
Yeah.
The same thing I said in the corner. Which I was like, dude, if you do this, it's over because the guys he's already watching his body, he's dead. And then Devin said, I am too tired to throw fucking side kicks. And I said, okay, well then scratch that shit. Let's move on to something else.
Yeah.
Like, let's go to plan B.
All of Devin's previous fights were in a big cage. He had room. He could keep the distance where we were fighting in a smaller ring. I think it was 20-foot ring. He was having to move a lot more. He doesn't, Devin's not wanting to fight on the inside. He was really having to work hard to get out of that corner, and because Skyler was constantly coming at him, so he was always having to circle in the cage. He just keeps that distance, and it's probably a good thing that he had a fight in a smaller ring. He's got a ton of potential, so he needs to see different styles and see different size rings. Because his first several fights were in my original cage, which was 27 feet. And now I have the 30-foot cage. His last fight was in the 30-foot cage. And man, he looked so good in that fight. Back in November, man, he looked really good. He fought a guy who was a pretty good wrestler, and the dude just couldn't get in on him. Like could not bring the fight close because Devin was just staying where he needed to be. And Skyler didn't give him that. Skyler was constantly getting close to Devin, and Devin was really having to work in a tighter space to create distance. And I think Kyle may have had the same. Like Kyle, won his fight. He definitely won his fight, but the guy he fought was the same thing. Like Devin and Kyle were trying to create space, work their kicks, and their opponent was trying to get in close and punch from the inside. So probably that was good for both of them to fight in a smaller ring like that for that experience.
So are you the matchmaker for these, or do you have somebody?
Yeah, I have I matchmake, and then Elijah Thacker does some matchmaking as well. And we're bringing on Josh Bowling. He's from Ohio. He's going to be assisting with some matchmaking, and he knows a lot of Ohio fighters.
Do you know Josh Bowling, Gary?
Yeah, I know the name. I'm familiar with him.
He trains with TJ Hensley, who was a amateur boxer. TJ was, I think, 22-1 amateur, and he hasn't fought in like 7-8 years, and he's getting ready to come back and fight pro for me. So, and Josh is with him, and they got man, I'm not sure where they're at, maybe Portsmouth or something, but they got a boxing gym there. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds right.
Well, it sounds like, so how many people are on your staff, Keith?
Just really the three of us. We have Justin Ball was helping us with some stuff, and then he stepped away. So it's the three of us doing the match. The three of us are doing the matchmaking, and it's really Josh is just helping us with the Ohio guys, and Elijah is helping with some Eastern Kentucky guys. But we're not getting a lot of guys out of Eastern Kentucky. There used to be so many fighters there, and then it's kind of dead right now. When Eddie Trotter was running his stuff back in the day, like there were so many fighters over there, and then like it's there's not much going on over there now. So we're having a hard time pulling fighters from that area.
I'm going to ask probably what is a stupid question, and it's because I don't know anything about the boxing world. We're setting up MMA fights.
I'm just learning the boxing world.
So I've got a kid who is 15, about to turn 16, who trains constantly and wants an MMA fight whenever he can get one. Are there any under 18 MMA fighters?
You can fight in Virginia. I've seen it on Titans of the Cage. They have youth MMA fights. They have, depending on the age group, they have different rules. I think 15, 16 is pretty close to regular amateur rules. I don't think they can knee or elbow to the head or anything, but it's pretty close to just like straight up amateur rules. But for like the littler kids, they have like punches only to the body and then no strikes on the ground. But they do have youth MMA in Virginia. West Virginia, you gotta be 18.
That's what I thought.
So Gary, just so you know, like Titans of the Cage guys, my good friend Greg Gring, him and his wife and his son.
His son's his special. He's gonna go somewhere.
Yeah, he's got his son's a great figure, but him and his wife, I think his wife's name is Kimberly.
Yeah.
Great people. They like the Browns. Fuck Cincinnati Bengals.
No. Okay, now we were doing so good now. Talking about small town talent making it big, and you talk like Joe Burrows is from you hurt me, you cut me a little bit.
Yeah, I know. It's just a joke. It's just a joke. I love.
I know.
I'm ready for joke. But those are great. So I'm assuming you're talking about Trace Irwin.
Yes.
No?
Yeah.
Trace is amazing. But anyway, for real, I can hook you up with those guys. It's important we know. Like, look, there's going to be people that scoff at the fact that under 18 can compete. Whatever. It doesn't mean I disagree with you or agree with you, but like if your kids are like 5 and 6, here's the thing that I don't get. Like, so somebody would say that's so stupid. I get phone calls every single day with somebody looking for their kid to start boxing, which is fine, right? I don't do boxing anymore because I'm more into the Jiu Jitsu MMA kickboxing thing. But anyway, I try to explain to them that their kid's going to get brain damage, right? And they're like shocked. Like, I don't understand how nobody puts this together, because they're like, I'm like, I don't really do that. We do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for kids, and here's why. And I'm like, I've got brain damage. I can't remember anything. So I'm kind of more like pushing kids toward Jiu-Jitsu. And they're like, I've never thought about that. I'm like, you never thought that your kid's going to get punched in the fucking head every day of his life since 5 to like 18? And they're like, no. But we're conditioned to think that, right? Because it's okay. It's okay to watch, whoever the championship. It's okay, but it doesn't mean bad. It's not a bad thing. But it's just like people forget, right? So anyway, MMA for kids is not bad. People are going to say it's bad, but my argument would be, which is what Joe Rogan says, kids don't punch hard enough, really, right now.
Yeah,
they're not getting hurt. And I don't mean this in a derogatory means. It's going to sound very derogatory, but a lot of women's MMA is similar, right? That's why we love those fights, because they beat the dog shit out of people, but they don't hit hard enough to knock them out. It's not like Mike Tyson hits you and you go out, right? These girls go toe to toe, bam, bam, bam. And we love it because it's a barn burner, but they don't hit hard enough to hurt each other, right? I think that's a lot of the teenagers and the kids, not all of them. And I would agree with you that's not the greatest. But if you're going to let your kid fight Golden Gloves from the age 5 all the way up to like the Olympics and all this, you need to understand, right? Like there is an inherent, right?
Outside of that though, and don't get me wrong, there's definitely inherent danger in any, like in any contact sport, right? MMA, if it's boxing, if it's football, if it's BMX bike riding, if it's motocross, and we don't think twice about putting kids on an 80cc motorcycle and letting them hit the ramp, right? Like that's, oh well, he grew up doing that since he was 6. Yeah. But all those kids are taking way harder falls than anything that could happen in a cage to a 16-year-old kid. And so, my whole thing is like, if the kid's got a passion for something, try and funnel him to it. That might be the thing. He might not go on to be a UFC fighter or whatever, but that's how he channels his energy into something positive. That's where he learns success and failure and how to overcome problems. And that's a good thing in life to learn as a 15, 16-year-old kid, is like, hey, a lot of people, you beat the shit out of them, and then a lot of people beat the shit out of you, and that's called life.
No, and Trace, for the kid that we're talking about, which used to be your former student since you moved, right, is a beautiful young man who writes to me all the time and tells me about the Jiu Jitsu tournaments he's going to enter and all this thing, and it's changed his life. It's made him a better person. If we took, now Jiu Jitsu is different, right? He's not taking the head contact, I get it, but all these things have made Trace a better person. Right. And I don't know Trace as well as you do, but I do know that he loves the sport. He loves this. It's changed him as a human being 100%. And you could speak more to that, but I can tell you.
And here's the thing. I'm not supposed to have favorites, right? I'm supposed to, it's kind of like parents with kids. You're supposed to love them all equally. And but there's something different about Trace. The way, me and some of the other coaches talk about it, and it's like, and this is nothing against the guys who talk about wanting to fight, but there's talk and then there's action. And Trace just shows up. When it's time to show up, he shows up. And if there's a seminar that he wants to attend and he knows he wants to do leg locks, then he goes to a Ryan Hall seminar. He doesn't ask about it. He just signs up. If there's a competition and he wants to do it, he signs up. And I'm not saying anything bad about anybody else, because it's not. It's just what he does that is different than other people. He shows up and he doesn't talk about it. He just does. He took a we have the Boxing for Books thing back at home in Athens, and it's put on by Sam Jones. And Trace basically begged, borrowed, and stealed to get a match just so he could do it. I mean, essentially it's a smoker, right? Kind of like a in-house sparring match, but it's a little more than sparring. But he, that's what he wanted. He made sure he got a match. Same thing. He's trying to get a Muay Thai match up at the Arnold, because and he's never trained with an actual, he's trained with guys who do Muay Thai, but not like an actual Muay Thai gym where that's the
also how old is Trace?
15. I think he may have just turned 16. He's either 15 or just turning 16. But he
and his parents are super supportive, right?
The best. I mean, they know, and they're not, they don't have any grandiose ideas. They just want to see what he can do. See where it takes him, let him.
This is the first thing that their son has loved. And so they want him to pursue it, right? It could have been mathematics. It could have been fucking building robots, but it happens to be MMA / jiu-jitsu / kickboxing / whatever. I'm speaking for an outsider because they write me as well, and I'm not his trainer. Gary is, but I know what his parents, they love him, and this is what he loves, right? And who are we not to support what a child loves? Other than, I get it, like I'm not stupid, if your child loves something that's fucking crazy. But MMA is a sport with referees and judges and everything else. And again, like you said, there's not a lot of places where the people of his age can do something, but he's not doing those things. He's doing jujitsu and everything else, and some small level things that he's trying to get in. But this has changed his life.
Yeah, well, and here's another thing. Like anybody who wants to be critical over the idea, and it feels like we're rehashing all the stuff of the human cockfighting and stuff from the late 90s, but like anybody who wants to be critical over kids fighting in MMA or having an MMA match with, for the most part, fairly safe rules, where there's no knees to the head, there's, uh, it's a dialed back version of MMA. But anyone who wants to be critical of that, do you ever go and look at, just Google cheerleading accidents?
Absolutely.
Google BMX bike wrecks.
Yeah.
And if you're okay with your kid going in and doing BMX mountain biking or going into cheerleading, there's way more injuries than that than what we see in MMA and jiu-jitsu. Way more. I mean, it's probably tenfold. And it's because, they're doing stuff at high speeds and rotational force that far exceeds anything that you're going to see in MMA. So before you like want to stamp this is bad, like look, compare it to something that you're somewhat familiar with and say, is it really that unreasonable?
That's always my argument with boxing, right? Like I said, parents call all the time, and it's like when I call it to their attention, they never thought about their kid getting punched in the face. They never even thought of it. They just think of boxing, right? And I explained to them, I'm like, look, dude, I'm a boxer. I love boxing. I'm not knocking it. I'm a Golden Gloves champion. This is what I did. But if you think about it, if I'm sparring, I'm getting punched in the face every day. That's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever, right? I'm getting punched in the face. And then typically it's just sparring. So if I have a headache or I got rocked in sparring, I'm expected to show up tomorrow. It's not like, hey, you got a concussion. Everybody's like, you're a pussy if you don't show up. So I show up tomorrow. So I'm probably fighting on a concussion, which is that's the norm, right? That's how I grew up. That's how Gary grew up. That's how Keith grew up. That's how we grew up. We're a little bit more hardcore. So I try to explain that to people. Like, I'm not against it. I just want you to be aware, because I didn't think about it either. And that's why I suffer from the things that I suffer from, right? I grew up with people that fought in Pride and they fought in K1. I was their sparring partner, which means that those guys kicked my ass, especially when they had a girlfriend. They'd bring their girlfriend on Tuesday and Thursday to watch so their girlfriend can see them kick my ass. Right. And then they would show up again, and these guys fought. And then I was a wuss, or, whatever, if I didn't show up on Wednesday, if I sparred on Tuesday. And that's not what you do in a concussion. If we watch the NFL and Tom Brady gets hit, he takes a week off and he has to pass a concussion protocol. There's no such thing in boxing or MMA, right? Doesn't mean that it's wrong. Look, again, I'm not trashing the sport. This is the way it came up, but I'm just reminding people this is what we do. I hit you in the face until you give up, right? 12 rounds. So if he hit you 100 times a round, that's 1,200 times a fucking round you got punched in the face. And then I expect you to show up tomorrow to do the same thing. That's absurd compared to football, which everybody's like scared of, right? These giant men are hitting you one fucking time, right? Like, not compared to boxing or kickboxing. We get punched and kicked in the face and kneed in the face and elbowed in the face. It's an interesting dichotomy of people that don't understand what's going on, especially parents, because they're like, look, my son's getting bullied. I want him to learn boxing. Okay. Well, you do know your son's going to get his ass kicked for like a couple weeks until, months or whatever it is, till he figures this out. And then he's going to have to beat the bully up until he knocks them unconscious, right? Or I can teach him jiu-jitsu where he mounts the guy and says, hey, man, if you don't give up, I'm going to beat your face in. And then usually the bully says, okay, like, I quit, right? And then they're like, oh, man, I never thought of it that way. Well, I did, because I was the guy that got beat up for all this time, right? So my point is, that's where we are. I probably don't have a point, but the point is,
well, the point is Trace is awesome.
Yes, and the point is Trace is awesome. But the point is also, as trainers, I bring people to that attention, maybe make them think of something but it's still their decision, right? What they want their kid to do. I can also turn them down if I think it's too dangerous, which I do. I am not a fight trainer anymore. for kind of those reasons. However, I'm not against it, right? I have a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old. I also have a 15-year-old. I don't mention him because he's 15, but the 6 and 9-year-old, like, they're going to go through some stuff, right? I want them to be able to protect themselves. And I think jiu-jitsu is the way because it's less violent, but it doesn't mean I don't want them to know striking, right?
Yeah.
Here's the point. I just want people aware. When you enter this sport, when you promote this sport, when you judge the sport, when you referee this sport, there's an inherent risk of brain damage. There's an inherent risk that you may die. There's an inherent risk of crazy stuff that Gary and I and Keith and everybody, we look normal, but maybe underlining we're all crazy Dexter motherfuckers. We don't know. We could be Junior Seau and Chris Benoit and Aaron Hernandez and everything else, right?
Yeah.
Like, these are all the worst things, right? Here's the thing. We could take it easy. Keith, Butch, and Gary took a beating, so you don't have to, right? So you don't have to. When you turn 18, your life's terrible. You can join the Army, the Marines, the Air Force, the Navy, or you can go get your ass kicked in MMA. You pick one of those 3 or one of those 5, I guess, or the Space Force. That's a new thing. I don't know what the fuck the Space Force does, but they do something. You could pick one of those things, right?
Yeah.
That's what we got right nowadays. But here, look, the point is also that you can support it in a good organization like Keith's, where the referees and the judges do a great job, and the promoter does a great job. He's not looking to throw Joe Schmo that has 0 fights versus a guy that has 100 fights. He's looking to throw a good fight because he wants people to show up. He wants good gyms to show up. He wants good referees to show up. He wants everything good, because if not, if it's a bunch of bullshit, nobody's going to come watch that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And look, man, I was part of it. I saw it with my own eyes. I didn't have no preconceived notions. I didn't give a shit if Keith's show's good or bad. I don't give a shit. I had 2 guys fighting in it. If it sucked, I would have left and be like, my guys won, but that fucking show sucked. Right? Like, I have no bone in the thing, but I came away saying Keith did a great job, man. This is what West Virginia needs. This is what we're 5 or 10 years behind, but Keith's been through it. He's been through the trenches. He's taken his licks. He's won and maybe he's lost. He's done more winning than losing, but here we are, man. Here we are, and we're better off for it. And I'm thankful for that.
Where are we at, Keith, as far as like upcoming stuff that you have going on or anything happening soon?
So I've got 2 events scheduled out right now. I'm looking at doing a little more in the summer. The next 2 are coming up so fast that I'm kind of wanting to take some time off after April. But we had the event January 29th. The next one is March 12th in Hearts. It's going to be a mix of MMA, boxing, and kickboxing. I'm fighting on the card myself in a pro boxing match. It's going to be my pro debut, my first sanctioned fight since like 2012. And that fight was like a 2-day notice thing, and I hadn't trained in 4 years at that point either. But whatever. I'm training right now. We've got I think we've got 15 fights matched on that card right now. I'm still trying to get Kyle James booked. Kyle's wanting to fight 145 MMA. I'm just trying to get the right match for him. I take my time on the matchups. And Butch, you probably can tell, like, we had a lot of decisions on that fight card, and I really pride myself on looking into these guys and trying to get some good fights. They don't always turn out, to be an equal matchup like I thought it would, but most of them do. So I've got a list of guys right now. I'm trying to fill these last 5 fights. I'm not in a hurry because I want to get the fights matched well, but I got plenty of guys that are both 145, 0-0, but then, this guy's a purple belt and been training for 8 years and has got like 10 boxing matches, and dude over here's, a 2-stripe white belt. I'm not going to match them together. It's not a good fight. Then we've got a lot of stuff like, a lot of guys like that I could throw in there because MMA, they're both, got 0 fights or 1 fight, but I'm not going to put them together. So March 12th. And then I'm trying something new. Scares the crap out of me trying anything new, man. It's not in my lane exactly, but we're doing a 2-night boxing tournament in April 1st and 2nd. It's going to be in Baileysville. We're calling it the Baileysville Brawl. It's similar to like the Tough Man format, basically, the same thing as the Tough Man format, but we're going to have a lot of standalone fights both nights as well. So it's a 2-night tournament, it's semi-pro. It's a prize fight tournament. The winner of the tournament gets paid cash, check, but we call it a cash prize. And we're going to have amateur boxing, amateur kickboxing, pro boxing on the card as well. So it's going to be a mix of all that. No MMA on that one. And then I'm looking probably for June for the next one after that. I like to schedule them out a little further ahead, but that's where I'm at right now. Trying to get something in Logan, but we're having trouble getting a place in Logan. So
you're doing good. And your next fight is Hearts, right?
Yeah, Hearts. It's the old Hearts High School. It's now the community center. We had a fight there back in November. It turned out really well. Devin fought on there. I think Kyle fight? Yeah, Kyle. I believe Kyle fought on there as well.
Can you do me a favor? Not to interrupt you, but can you put a fight in Big Ugly, West Virginia, please?
They have a community center, don't they?
Yes. So Gary, if you didn't know, this is a real place. It's called Big Ugly, West Virginia. So I would love to have a couple motherfuckers fighting in Big Ugly. It would be the best thing ever.
I remember seeing a newspaper clipping, and I think it made it to like Leno or something, but there was a lady died in a car accident at Big Ugly. She's from Big Ugly, and it literally the newspaper headline said "Big Ugly Woman Dies in Accident."
Absolutely. And I remember. So I want some big ugly motherfuckers to get knocked out in West Virginia. So that's the next thing, man. We're in. If you do that, Gary and I will be front row at Big Virginia. Right?
Yeah. I will be the biggest and ugliest fan. That's what I will be. All
right. We're in. So here's what I want to say, Keith.
Okay.
I appreciate you. Honestly.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man.
Well, you do a great job. Right now, you are the premier MMA/boxing/kickboxing guy, because there is nobody else doing all three of those right now in West Virginia. There's some other guys trying, but you're the number one. You're the best. You threw the best thing. That's why we're here, because you threw an amazing event. Gary's looking from the outside in. What do you have to say about this, Gary? Learning from what we learned today.
Well, as somebody who considers himself an
ugly motherfucker,
someone who considers himself as a pretty good Sunday morning quarterback, kind of Joe Rogan for MMA. If you need some help in MMA commentating,
yes,
I would love to do it. Awesome. I mean, I don't know if I can do as good as Chris, but I'll try.
We may need some help on the next show. Elijah Thacker's been he's been my main commentator lately, and he recently started his own gym, and he has, I think, 4 or 5 guys fighting on the card, so he's going to be a little too busy to be commentating. Yeah, he's a little, because he's pretty upset. He's like, man, I really want to do the commentating, but I can't be in the commentating booth. I can't be over here on the headset talking while my guys are in the locker room trying to mentally prepare for a fight and get warmed up, and then going into the cage, and then the guy that's training them every day is sitting over here talking on a microphone about their fight. So he's pretty conflicted. He's like, I have to be with my guys. So yeah. So
but outside of that, and I'm not trying to pressure you. If you've got, I'm sure you have people who are way better at it than me. So I could be coerced into coming and talking. But no, as far as fighting goes, it's always about spreading the love of fighting, the love of martial arts, and so Butch has got so many connections, obviously you, Keith, and so many more, that every time I get on here, I'm like, Jesus, man, I thought I've met a lot of people, and I haven't met shit,
Everybody knows Butch.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I'm
I've
just
known
excited.
of Butch forever. Like before Butch knew me, I've known of Butch forever. I mean, years ago, if you think of jiu-jitsu in West Virginia, like it's Butch.
Well, that's like, and here's the crazy thing is like, I don't even know why he likes me. Like, I'm not that interesting. I really haven't accomplished that much. I'm just some weird guy who happens to do jujitsu from Ohio and now living in North Carolina. Like, I don't know. He's got so many cooler people that he could be doing this with. And for some reason it's me. So.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. He asked me to come on. I'm like, man, I'm just the guy that puts the show on. I'm not anybody special now.
Yeah, you guys are
I'm a has-been. Yeah.
You guys are the two most important people. That's why we're here. Here's what I think. I think, Gary, you correct me if I'm wrong, but Ashley Lockwood has some good stories. But I think by the time we're in with this, we hear about the backyard brawl. We hear about Keith Nose coming up and Greg Maynard fighting Stipe and Mocha. I think this fucking should knock the crap out of that stuff. Honestly,
it should be up there. I mean, it's some good stories. Some good stories.
Some good stuff, man.
Yeah,
knock it out of the park, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back in the cage, man. Myself, I'm thinking about doing MMA again. You know, I haven't competed jiu-jitsu since 06. I haven't done MMA since 08. And that was a weird time. I was really wanting to get with Butch at that time. So Butch probably remembers 2006. We had a little team down in Logan, affiliated with Helson Gracie, and it was a real short time, just a few months. And then Mark Gardner was an awesome coach. He was a blue belt under Helson, and then he
Logan top team, right? Logan top team.
Well, yeah, we were.
I remember
we were actually. I had a team. Before we were even training with Mark, we had a team called Logan Top Team. We trained in the grass beside the basketball court at McConnell, which is in Logan County. We were called Logan Top Team, and we would travel around to tournaments, and we actually won a team title one time, and none of us had ever had a real jiu-jitsu class in our lives. Wow. We were watching UFC videos. We had the Gracie VHS set, and we were practicing that. What we really sucked at was positional, because when you get a bunch of 10 to 15-year-old kids watching VHS, we were trying to learn the fancy submission moves, but we weren't grasping guard passes and like positional things. So we were like, we would know an arm bar from one position, and if we weren't in that position, we couldn't do that arm bar. So, but we would go to these
funny.
Tournaments.
That's kind of the Dean Thomas way, though, right? Like he commentates for the UFC.
Jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, that's how he did it. He was like, me and my friends were in the backyard and we watched a video, and then we tried it 100 times, and then we'd go back and watch a video and try the next move 100 times.
I got good pretty quick when I got with Mark, because I had been grappling for years, but just with other untrained people. But we would grapple every day, and we had tournaments. We like literally held jiu-jitsu tournaments. We held MMA tournaments in our neighborhood, and like people from all over the place would come down and grapple with, and they would show up and they're like, where's the tournament? We're like, yeah, right here, the grass. They're like we had like flyers online, like making it look like it was
the sexiest shit that I've ever heard.
Bunch of high school kids. Yeah, it was almost like street beefs. Yeah, it was like street beefs, but you show up and it's like a patch of grass that we also play football on beside the basketball court. This is where we're competing. Yeah. And we would film the matches and stuff. I got a bunch of them still in those little tapes that are like tiny little things that you have to put inside of a bigger tape, play it inside your VHS. Yeah. I've got a bunch of those with the old jiu-jitsu tournaments, and that were literally held in the grass in my neighborhood. But yeah, I got with Mark, and who was a blue belt, and like Mark started training with me, and like I think I was sparring somebody, and I was tapping somebody out, and he was like, man, you're good. And then I started going with him. He was like, wait a minute, you're not good. Because I only knew a few things, but I was really athletic, really flexible. But so I start with Mark. I didn't even have a gi. He gave me a white belt, and then I think 2 weeks after starting training, we went and competed in the Gracie Nationals in Columbus. It was like October of 2005, and it was the Gracie Nationals. And I went up there.
That was under Helson at that time. It was before I started training, but that was under Helson. Yeah.
So we were competing as the because we were affiliated with Helson because that was who Mark was under. So here we are, a little redneck team from Logan, West Virginia. We show up to a tournament. We are the Helson Gracie Hawaiian competition team, and I go up there and win several matches, and I got beat by one of Butch's guys on a decision. And you probably don't remember. You've been to so many of these things. Helson raised my hand at the end of the match, and I knew I lost. And Helson was on the phone. Helson was on the phone matchmaking for the GFC event, the Gracie Fighting Championship event that he had coming up that March.
Yeah.
So he had that. Yeah, his son fought Dustin Hazlett. So he was on the phone matchmaking for March while he was refereeing my MMA match. And I remember
basically he didn't give a fuck, right?
Yeah. And at the end of the match, he just kind of looked at us and raised my hand. And I was like, no, I didn't win. And my coach, Mark Gardner, came out because I think it might have been you. Somebody was a little upset, like, whoa, how did he win? Like, and then my coach was even like, no, like he won. And then Helson raised his hand and he went on in the tournament. But I think that put him in the championship against Neeson Osterneck, I believe. So that was 05, and I had 2 weeks of actual training at that point. And I think I had won like 3 matches. And my first match, I went against an Ohio State wrestler. And this dude was a monster, man. I mean, the dude's like, he was on the football team. He was a linebacker and he was a wrestler on Ohio State. And what team was he with? You know, they called it Hammer House, but it wasn't Hammer House. That was just the name they had on the
Buckeye MMA, or
maybe, yeah. Because I know like everybody called it Hammer House, but it wasn't actually Hammer House. So he was with that gym. And I'm sitting here, I'm seeing this dude walk around. I'm like, dude, like, as long as I don't face this guy first, I'm good. And then they like announce his name, and I'm like, oh, let's see who he's up against. And they say my name, and I was like, I was scared to death. And then this dude beat me up, and there's jiu-jitsu. He was there, boom, landing elbows and forearms, headbutts, shoulders. Dude beat me up, and then I ended up tapping him with an Achilles lock, which was the first move I ever learned. That time I knew an Achilles lock, I think a basic arm bar, and a basic guard pass. But I was really athletic. I was really quick, really, really flexible. I beat that dude with the Achilles lock. And no, that was somebody else. I beat that dude with a rear naked choke. I beat somebody else with Achilles lock. I don't know, but I won 3 or 4 matches. I think his name was Jeremy. Did you have a guy named Jeremy?
Probably. Listen, I have brain damage.
Yeah, one of your guys.
I'll just go with it.
Yeah, I was exhausted. One of your guys beat me, and then they raised my hand, and I was like, no. But yeah, so then the next tournament, we did one of your tournaments, and then we did the Gracie Worlds in March. And then right after that, my coach had to move. He got a job with CSX in Atlanta, and he moved. So we were done. Like so Jason Hall and I were like teaching. We were both white belts, and we're down there trying to keep the class going. And Jason, as a white belt, knew a ton of stuff. Like, he's like a sponge. He sees it and he memorizes every little detail. Like, if you teach him, you could teach Jason a move in 3 steps, and within 5 minutes, Jason will have that move broken down into 15 steps, and like every little, where you need the arm positioning and every little thing. You take him, if you're not allowed to have a camera in a seminar, take Jason. He'll remember everything that they show him. But Jason and I were like running the class, trying to keep that going. Then it got hard. Somebody broke in we were in the Logan High wrestling room. Somebody broke in and like destroyed the place. And so they kicked everybody out. And then Jason went with you. He was driving to Charleston, as much as he could get there. I couldn't do it. Like, I was working full time. I was working at Walmart and just couldn't afford it. So I think I went up there like once or twice. You guys were like rode up in Cabin Creek or something. It was before you were downtown, but I went up there a few times and trained. And I was like, man, I was dying to train there. I just couldn't do it.
Keith, I'm going to cut you off. I think we need to do that. I don't know about Butch. I think we need to do this again.
Yeah.
So I think
we're 2.5 hours.
Yeah. I'm getting the red light from the other side, but hey, let's do this again right before before you hold your next promotion.
Yeah.
So if you're doing it the 12th, we'll try and go for the week before that maybe. But
Okay,
I think
sounds good.
I think you've got tons of stories, and you know, like Butch was saying, this I think this could we could try and rival the Ashley podcasts.
We're on it.
I can't compare to Ashley Lockwood, man.
You're
doing great. You're doing great.
I can't make Ashley mad. Ashley will come after me, man. He'll eat me up.
Here's what I say: let's make him mad.
I think I
promote it and make some money.
So we're all set, man.
Yeah.
Okay. How can people get a hold of you, Keith? Whether it be they just want to say hi to you on Facebook or Instagram, or if they need fights.
Yeah, you can check out our website, newlinecagefighting.com. We have fighter sign up forms on there. Information about anything we have coming up is on there. I have a page on Facebook. It's I changed the name to New Line Championship Boxing and Cage Fighting on Facebook. Instagram. I don't know. I can't keep up with all these new social medias. I'm an old man. But we're on Instagram. I don't know what our name is.
Well, here's
TikTok. We got one video on TikTok.
As an outsider, if you change your name to New Line Fighting, I think that covers everything, right?
Covers everything, yeah.
Right, cage fighting, you need to like boxing because it's fighting, right? And Keith Snow right now is dominating the West Virginia boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, MMA, everything. Keith Snow is the man. So if you're looking to fight, if you're looking to compete, if you're looking to watch fights, if you're looking to just watch fights, cheer them on, participate in everything, look him up. Look up the fighting. Look up New Line because it's taken off like mad fire right now. It is. There's other promotions, but I will tell you this: they throw everything. They put on fair fights. They're not trying to expose people. They're not trying to make fun of people. They're trying to put on the best fights possible, which is for a fan. That's what you want to watch. I want to show up and
for amateur fighters in West Virginia. Yeah.
I want to make sure my $20 or whatever I'm paying for a ticket, I'm gonna get my $20 back, and that's for you.
If you want to watch fights, guys, we put on great shows. Equal matchups on our amateur fights. We try to get a couple pro fights on every card. Amateur fighters out there in West Virginia, anybody wanting to look into it, find a gym. There's a lot of promoters in the state. There's guys up north. You got Mike Shepard and Brian Lee there in Parkersburg. Chase Hill's kind of doing boxing down in the same area as me. There's a lot of places to compete right now, and it's a good time. It's a lot better than it was when Butch and I were coming up, when you were begging for fights and you couldn't get anything. So if you want to be a fighter, it's a really good time. There's a lot going on here right now. So if you want to watch fights, come watch our shows.
It's exciting stuff, man.
Yeah.
It's exciting stuff. Thank you for coming on. Like I said,
thanks for having me, guys.
Again. Absolutely. We'll have to do this again before the next promotion you have coming up. You said that was March
12th. Yeah, about 5
March
weeks.
12th.
Yeah, it's coming up soon.
So we'll try and get you on maybe the week before.
Sounds good.
Try and pump up those numbers and get people out to see you.
Yeah, man.
Thank you so much for coming on, Butch. Always, I love you. You're awesome. My favorite person. So let's get off here. Everybody have a good night. Take care.
All right, kick some ass. Watch the end of the Pro Bowl. Love you guys. Bye.
Go Bengals.
Yeah, exactly.